Hey everybody, it's Aldo Gandhi, and I just want to let you know really quickly that our swag shop is reopened. DeepDishTees.com is where you go, and that's tees with T-E-E-S. Clever name, guys. They're the new home of our merchandise. You can get t-shirts, you can get caps, you can get coffee mugs, you can get hoodies, you can get all sorts of good stuff, and you'll help out the bar room with the purchase. So head over to DeepDishTees.com.
Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Put the children to bed. It's time for Dan and Aldo to bare their souls.
I love the Chicago Bears more than I do masturbating, and that is a lot.
Then, with 3 seconds left, Bob Avellini throws a 30-something-yard touchdown pass to Greg Latta, and the Bears win, and I literally shit my pants. I swear to God, I literally did.
Eric Kramer, for me, I love the guy. He's a tragic figure. I mean, he embodies all that is.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well. Not for a guy of his caliber.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
So, Dan, tape is the ultimate tool for scouts and for coaches to evaluate players, to detect plays and so forth. And they spend hours looking at tape, right? Why do they so often get shit wrong?
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan and Aldo.
Last week I had lyrics for this song, and this week I don't have any lyrics for this song. Dan, won't you sing something for us? Dan, sing.
I can't sing, but I can give you some angst about opening night.
That is going to be one of the topics we're going to cover today, our opening games for Chicago Bears. We're going to look back in history, and Dan has such great recollection of some of the games, and I actually did a little research to remember some of the games that I first started watching during my history with the Bears, and so that's going to be a ton of fun. How are you, Dan?
I am well. How about you? And belated happy birthday.
Thank you. I had a great birthday with the family yesterday. I had a great time. The daughters were here with their boyfriends. We drank. We smoked reefer. I actually smoked reefer with, maybe I shouldn't say this. Who cares, right? With my stepdaughter's boyfriend. So that was pretty cool. And he taught me a couple of things about the latest in the world of herb. You still don't smoke, right? You're not going to smoke.
I've never smoked weed, but if this were Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is coming back next month, by the way, if you were Larry David right now, his boss would hear this podcast and fire him for smoking the weed, and they'd be like, Aldo, how could you? You got him fired, you bald motherfucker. Of course, you're not bald, but I'm saying Larry.
Almost getting there.
Everything that Larry does backfires on him, and everyone gets pissed. It's kind of like my in-laws before.
Mm-hmm.
No, actually, my mother-in-law liked me a lot. But the point is, The younger people would always mad at me about everything I did. How could you be watching the Bears? Well, fuck you. But yeah. But wouldn't that be terrible though? If like you're like, I smoked weed with him, and then suddenly you get shit canned for it.
Yeah, exactly. My wife would fire me. She's saying, "I'm cutting off all the funds that we put into the Bears, or excuse me, the Barroom Network, and you're no longer doing it." But she actually was there and witnessed it, and didn't say a peep. She smiled and she said, "This is your day. You can smoke with whoever you want." So that was a really great birthday present. Listen, I am worried. I'm really effing worried about Sunday night's game against the LA Rams. And you listened to something on the radio today that added to your anxiety.
Yeah, it was bizarre. Like, so I was just doing the last few things that you need to do to groom yourself. I was shaving, cleaning out my ears, brushing my teeth, the boring, mundane things this evening before I come into work. So I was like, well, I need something to listen to while I'm doing this, just to keep me occupied. I want something Bears related, So I thought, well, I wonder what David Kaplan's thinking or saying. And I didn't know, but Cap was out for a Jewish holiday today. And again, I'm not religious, so I wasn't cognizant of said holiday. So the guy that's normally their board op or their producer, Jeff Mahler, I don't know how to say his name. No disrespect to him. But he was running their show, and I thought, okay, what the fuck? I'll listen to him. I mean, he, whatever. I just want something for filler, for just 10 minutes. And a couple of things that he said that, like, sort of, like, worry me that jumped out from a national perspective on the Bears. Because normally, I feel like my whole life I've been trying to fight these narratives. For example, after 2001, everyone said, well, the Bears were lucky to be 13-3. And I'm like, how can you be lucky when you're winning all these games? And then the next year they come out and they're 4-12, and it's just like, you're always, no, Cutler's actually this and he's that. And then, he wins one playoff game. So I feel like every time it's an uphill battle, I end up losing. So with that said, the national perspective, according to the Cap show, Cap and J Hill this morning, whom were both off, they had like I said, their B team in, and they said that nationally, the Bears are predicted to be the third worst team in the NFC, only better than the Giants in Detroit. And I was like, wow. But then secondly, the part that I just don't see coming in to fruition at all, they said that Matt Nagy was predicted to be the coach on the hottest of hot seats and most likely to be fired early in the season. And even they were like, the Bears have never fired a coach in the early part, in the season at all. That's not going to happen. Those are two things apparently that are out there from a national perspective. And the first part that I mentioned about the Bears being like the shittiest team in the NFC, sans Detroit and the Giants, that comes from The Athletic. At least that was the source that they were revealing for it. And those are two things to have some anxiety about.
Yeah. Chubbs wants to know if we are guys that aren't going to be cheering for the Bears on Sunday. We'll be cheering for the Rams, like some of these so-called fans.
Absolutely not. No? Absolutely not. I don't care if it means that Nagy gets 3 more years. Of course, I don't want that necessarily to happen, unless somehow, he becomes the coach that he thinks he is.
Right.
But I want them to win every game. Even if that means Andy Dalton is winning all the games. I don't care. Like, for so many, you remember when Josh McCown went on that big run in 2013?
Sure.
I kept thinking, man, we got to get Jay back in there. Got to get Jay back in there, because if McCown's winning these games, it's going to tear. I just thought for some reason, like, it would be better for the team to have Cutler winning the games.
Mm-hmm.
And now, right now, I don't care. I just don't care. Like, if this were the 80s right now, back then I would have been ruining, McMahon, got to get Tom Zach, Flutie, everybody. You got to get McMahon in there. At this point, I don't care if it's Steve Fuller or Steve Stenstrom, whomever. No one mentions Steve Stenstrom more than me, by the way. But I don't care who the quarterback is. I just want to win. I don't care if it's, remember the Ravens won the Super Bowl that year with Trent Dilfer and he was gone as soon as he won the Super Bowl. If we had that scenario, fine, good. I don't care. I just want to win. Yeah. If that means Nagy gets credit, Andy Dalton gets credit, I don't care.
Exactly.
And there is no way I'm rooting for the Rams. No fucking way.
I'm with you 100%. I will never, ever, ever root against my Bears. I mean, I've been following this team since the late 1960s. I love them. The first time I saw them on television, I'll actually later when we talk about when we talk about opening games in Bears history, I'm going to show a little video of some of the first games that I saw. I fell in love with the sight of the Chicago Bears, the uniforms, the emblem on the helmet, with watching Gale Sayers. I even fell in love with the left-handed quarterback, Bobby Douglas, because he just threw the ball so hard and he had untapped potential, but no coach could get him right. But nonetheless, I loved it. And I'm telling you, these were some sorry-ass Bears teams, even though they had Dick Butkus and Gale Sayers. I remember the first full season that I watched the Bears, all 14 game regular season at the time, they ended up 1-13. And
so the 69 season.
Yeah. And I was still in love with them, and I read newspapers voraciously and always started with the sports section. I'd go to the corner store and papers were a nickel or a dime at the time. So I would search for change all over the house and bring back all 4 newspapers and start with the sports section and just follow the Bears and accumulated all this information on the Bears, who they were at the time, went to the library, read about their history and stuff. I love the motherfucking Bears. Love them. It's like a curse.
Let me ask you a question. I have a quick observation. I don't know if you'll remember this or not. And I've said this on the podcast before, so it's not anything dramatic in terms of what my question is going to be, but I'm going to put you on the spot, I guess, because it's, again, once more, it's something it confounds my mind. First off, I was going to say the cool thing about the 69 teams, I love that NFL 50th anniversary patch on the jersey. And I love the one in 94 for the 75th anniversary as well. But again, if you are winning a championship in 63, by 65, you draft 2 generational players in the same draft on offense and defense, and we know who they are. How can you I know Sayers is going to get hurt, but how can you go from a championship and adding on top of a championship, adding 2 Hall of Fame generational talents, 2 of the best players in the history of the organization, and then just a few years later be 1-13? How does that happen? Like, I don't know if how well you remember the 69 season, but what the fuck was going on? Well, like, where was Butkus at? Was he still like getting 26 tackles a game and they were still losing? Like, what was happening? No, those guys played great individually, but the problems were bad coaching. Sort of the same Imagine
shit
that.
and bad quarterbacking. I mean, when I first started following them, they had a guy named Jack Concannon, number 11. And Concannon was a running quarterback. He was not known for his passing. And if you go back and look at stats from his games, he would have completed like 6, 8, 11 passes and ran for 40, 50 yards and so forth. They just didn't have a good quarterback. And when it came down to coaching, when I moved to Chicago, it was George Halas's final year of coaching. So when I started following them, it was Jim Dooley as the coach. And he was supposedly this brainiac who had all these. Well, unfortunately, Halas picked the wrong coach. He let George Allen get away, and George Allen won Super Bowls with Washington and kept Jim Dooley. And Jim just didn't have it. He was not a leader of men. His offensive philosophy never got going. And plus, he didn't have a quarterback. There was this great moment back then where Jim Dooley actually lived with quarterback Bobby Douglas so that he could get him up to speed. He spent I think 2 weeks living together so he could teach him the playbook and teach him all the mechanics of playing good quarterback. And that was a big fiasco. And then,
don't give Matt Nagy any ideas.
Really? And that was followed by Abe Gibron, who was also a great offensive line coach, or a good offensive line coach, but he was not a head coach. He was a great character and stuff. So that's what happened back then.
I love Three Dog Night. They always showed him on the NFL film singing Joy to the World.
That's right. I forgot about that. So, it just is kind of typical for the Chicago Bears franchise. You know, they were a running team, but they didn't have a passing attack. They had good defensive players. And, you know, and frankly, like Mike North has said a couple of times on his show, the Mike North Advantage, in 1963, when they won the NFL championship against the New York Giants and Y.A. Tittle, they probably would not have won that one had it not been for the fact that the NFL suspended Paul Hornung, their fantastic running back.
Because of a gambling controversy.
Exactly. And so, you know, the Packers had, under Vince Lombardi, they had the Bears numbers. But it's just sad, but nonetheless, I still fucking love the Bears. I still fucking love them, and there's just no way. I don't care if they said, you know, lose this game. If the Bears lose this game and they'll get the number 1 overall pick in the draft, but if they win it, they'll drop to 5th or 6th or 7th, whatever. Fuck it. Go out there and try to win, guys. I don't believe in laying over for a high draft pick. You go out there and win. That the moment I feel like the players have given up or that the organization has given up, then maybe I'll start singing a different tune. Maybe my love will be tarnished, but there's just no way. I'm always going to love these guys.
Someone just said the most sexually provocative thing I believe I've ever heard. Now, this is someone I've never been with in an intimate sense, but she just sent me a text. She says, I'm trying to get fucked like driver style or choked. I want to be come in and then I want to have it fingered out of me and then I want to get refilled on my bathroom floor. Please do this for me.
Who is this?
That's just a lady. I don't even know her in real life. Someone that I messaged.
See, that's the great thing about Dan, because Dan is on the radio. All these women listen to his voice. And
no. This is from Facebook dating.
Oh,
again,
really?
I'm probably not gonna. Like I said, I don't have time to mess around with anybody right now.
Oh,
so.
Come on. You don't have time.
I'm always at work, man, but I just thought that really caught my attention.
Now read
she
that.
Says again, legitimately, I want to be filled with cum. I love her. I don't even know
her. So are you going to follow up at all?
Ah, man, I'm at work. I got so much to do. Like I've got to do, coming up on Thursday, for example, Wednesday night, I go in at 7:30 p.m. or tomorrow night, and I won't get off until 4 p.m. Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that puts a damper on anything your plans are. Then Friday, I've got high school football, and then Sunday, the Bears. So, fuck, man. No, I unfortunately won't be filling her full of semen, but the thought.
Chubb says, get that child support ready, Dan, if you do.
No. She's already said that she can't have any more children.
Oh, look at that.
She's had 2 and she got spayed afterwards. So.
That is good. Tony the Pod Boss says, Dan trying to bag women from Facebook dating, give her what she wants, LOL. I think that at the very least, you should ejaculate into a Pepsi bottle and send her the Pepsi bottle or something. You know?
Oh my God.
I don't know. You don't let your fans down, but she's not a fan. She's never listened to your radio work or anything like that.
No, she lives an hour and a half or so away. So, whatever. She's just someone that I don't really know.
Chubbs is warning you. Chubbs is warning you, saying, yeah, his ex-wife said she was on the pill, but she was lying. So don't believe anything. It's sort of like whatever the Chicago Bears say, don't believe it. And whatever women you meet on Facebook say, don't believe them.
Hey, what do you think? Not to transition away from that, but it just popped in my head. What do you think's going on with Akeem Hicks not talking to anybody?
That's a good
topic. Is this
topic.
all over the contract?
I believe that it is. And while Matt Nagy didn't say that it was, during the course of one of his 3-minute answers to a simple question, he did sort of say that it was. So he's unhappy. You know, we know that Lee Steinberg, his agent, visited camp a couple of times, and presumably it was to talk about Akeem Hicks's contract. And it just seems to me like the Bears are lowballing him to a point where they're saying, listen, you know, we don't really need you that much in 2022. So take what we're offering and be happy with it. That's my speculation on the situation.
Because they have to re-sign Nichols as well.
Exactly. There's some key figures that have to be signed. The weird thing is that with the way salary cap and contracts are in the NFL, you can sign them to a 3-year contract that could actually lower the cap this season, and they could make money available to sign any free agents that might be out there that they think that could help the team. Although, the counter argument, of course, is who the hell is out there? There's not a lot of named players, but if somebody were to get injured, you might need that money. So I feel bad because Akeem Hicks is one of my favorite interviews. And so not hearing his press conferences, his interaction with Chicago reporters is sad. And clearly he's not going to be on any radio shows. And I'm surprised.
He hasn't done any radio since the Waddle thing. So
yeah. And I'm surprised that there hasn't been a radio station in town that has offered him big bucks to be like a weekly show.
Well, he was with Mully and I don't know if it was Hanley still. I think it was Ha already.
Mm-hmm.
So he did Mully and Ha for a while. Then he went over to ESPN radio. And like I said, he had that thing where he thought that Waddle was mocking him, not realizing that Waddle was a former Bear that had gotten his fucking ass kicked and had been hurt over and over himself. And, so he thought that Waddle was mocking his injury in 2019 and said he would never appear on their station again, and he never has.
Sad. Chubb says that most of the players hate the media, so I actually think he's not talking to them because he's sick of answering their stupid questions. I'll never forget the time that he got pissed off at David Hall for interrupting him. They would ask him a question, one of their long-winded questions, and then as soon as Akeem started responding, they interrupted him. And after that happened 2 or 3 times, Hicks was not happy. Alex Sims says Nagy literally said he loves the way Akeem is handling the situation and loves how he's positive of the situation, pretty much saying Akeem ain't happy. That's a good interpretation of that, Alex.
I think that if Hicks would come out and play, now granted 19 he was hurt and had a horrific arm injury. Or elbow, you remember against the Raiders in London. So you can't really say that he was struggling or something to that point. He just got hurt. 2020, he was okay. I don't want to call anybody fat or anything, but he seemed a bit heavy at times.
Yes. But
I think if he would come back this year, like his play could easily dictate a raise in whatever money he's asking for.
Right.
If he shows that he's like the guy from 18, they would love to bring him back, but now he's got to play against his age.
Right.
Like, can you still bring it? But if he can, look, they re-signed Danny Trevathan. They brought Robert Quinn in at 30. So, and there's no way that if he plays really well, that they're going to just let him walk intentionally. So if he wants a raise, like just bring it on the field. Show us Sunday night,
Yep. Alex Sims has a good point here. He says, where'd it go? He says, we can't pay Akeem $10 million a year. Bilal probably will get 9 to 10. Goldman then getting 10. That's a lot of money for our D linemen. Well, first of all, I don't know if Bilal Nichols has like close to 10 sacks this season and plays like at the Akeem Hicks level of 2008, 18, 19, then yeah, I think Bilal Nichols could get somewhere close to $10 million. And if that's the case, then you really don't need Akeem Hicks. It would be great to have him, but he's basically, Bilal would then basically be Akeem's replacement. I think from a contract standpoint, it is pretty smart for the Bears to kind of wait and see what the production level is from these guys, because if Bilal has a knockout season, he's younger, and sign him to a multi-year contract. And Akeem at 32 years old and 335 pounds, which is a lot of weight to carry on knees and ankles that have been injured. I hate to say it because I love these guys and I want them to make the most money they can. But from a business standpoint, that seems to make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I hate to agree, but like you said, reluctantly, like that's the nature of the business, I suppose. I would just like to see, selfishly, obviously I want to see the Bears win, But if anybody on the team right now deserves like to go out as a winner, I'd like to see Akeem, because Akeem has been there since, God, wasn't he on the 3-13, 16 Bears?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, he's been around a while now, so he's gone through some shit.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when the Bears won the Super Bowl, you had to be really happy for Gary Fensick, because he had been there since 76 or 77 or whatever. Had gone through all of that stuff. Mike Hartenstein had gone through all the losing and the dark days. Not to get off topic, it's tragic how many of the older Bears retired after the 84 season. Like the Jim Osbornes, the Terry Schmitz.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That like just missed out on the Super Bowl by 1 year.
That's right. That's right.
Or think about fucking Al Harris or Todd Bell.
Yep.
The late Todd Bell. That, don't even get a ring because they were playing what their agents told them to do.
That is so true. I mean, I forgot about those guys retiring in 84 and missing out on the 85 season. Everybody, of course, remembers the Al Harris, Todd Bell situation. And I'll never forget, watching that defense during the middle of the season and thinking there are 9 Pro Bowlers on this defense. If those guys would have played, we probably would have had 10. Maybe 11 if Al Harris would have gotten a lot of playing time, which I don't think he would have. But it is sad when, you get these great players like Kyle Long. I would have loved to have seen him celebrate
because
a Super
he
Bowl.
went through all the losing too.
Yep. King Pookie Nation Alvarez says he's asking, did you know that Eddie Jackson has his own cereal? Did you know that, Dan?
No, I haven't heard of his athlete with his cereal since Flutie Flakes.
That's right, Fruity. But a lot of people in the chat room are guessing what the name of the cereal is. You care to take a guess?
You tell me. I don't know.
Eddie Jackson cereal should be called Beat Deep. Don Burr suggests that. Zach Sullivan says Burnt Toast Crunch.
Wow.
Man, poor Eddie Jackson. I don't know what the cereal is, and King Pookie isn't divulging it, but nonetheless, Eddie Jackson did meet with the media this week, and while I didn't pull any sound bites, shame on me, I did read some of what he had to say, and Eddie is like, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He wants to, he's seeing what is going on around the city of Chicago, and some of the national media people questioning his ability, questioning his tackling, wondering why there's been such a deep decline in his turnovers. And he says he's kind of pissed off about it and is going to go out there with a chip on his shoulder. Do you like it when players say that, Dan?
I mean, you can take that either way. I mean, I don't think there's a definitive rule that says when they have the quote unquote chip on their shoulder, that's when they deliver. That could be when they don't deliver. So I don't really know what to think about that, honestly.
We're getting more names for the cereal. Bo Jack's Cinnamon Toast Squares. Missed Tackle Crunch.
Wow.
But the King Pookie Nation has come through with the real name of the cereal. It is Bo Jack's. That's a great name for a cereal, Bo Jack's. Little apple flavor, maybe. You can buy it at Mariano's, the big super grocery store here in Chicago.
Real quick, 2 more names from the 84 team that didn't make it to 85 that were with the Bears a long time. Brian Baschnagel. And, of course, this gentleman got cut in the middle of the 84 season after the Seattle game, but Bob Avellini.
Number 7. Good old number 7. Yeah, Baschnagel.
He went to prison later, didn't he?
That's right. He had, I think it was a DUI or something like that. Bob Avellini. He's still around, and I think still lives in the Chicago area. Bob, if you're watching the show, you want to join us and share with us your story about what happened during your Bears days. You threw one of the greatest passes. It's funny that somebody mentioned it earlier in the chat, that Kansas City Chiefs touchdown pass to win the game that I make reference to in the open to Greg Latta. It was a tremendous pass and catch, Avellini to Latta.
There goes another name, Jay Saldy, the tight end. He was done after 84.
Yeah, Jay Saldi. I don't remember that guy.
He came from Dallas with Ditka. It was one of the first trades he made.
Oh.
Yeah, he did all right, as a Bear. I mean, it's not like he was setting the world on fire or something, a Pro Bowler, but that was a solid player. So yeah, there were a lot of, and God, again, I know he's known as a Viking, but you'd like to see maybe if Alan Page could have hung around. Like, even if he was on the bench, considering he lost all those Super Bowls with Minnesota, if he could have just hung around a few more years with the Bears and gotten that ring,
Yeah, I agree with you. Hey, by the way, Jeremy asked, wasn't Avellini cut in the middle of the 85 season? I don't remember.
84. It was after the Seattle game. And, yeah, so the Bears went to Seattle in 84, which the fun thing about that game is it's one of the rare ones with Franco Harris as a Seahawk. Because West Virginia boy Kurt Warner, the running back, was injured, and Franco was arguing over money with Pittsburgh because it's kind of like what we were saying about Akeem Hicks. They're like, look, we love you. You've been around. You've won Super Bowls, but you're a little bit older. We don't want to pay. So he says, fuck you. And at the time, he was close to breaking Jim Brown as well. So he went to Seattle, and it didn't work out. He got cut early in the season, but he was still there when the Bears went up to Seattle. And they had I think a 7-3 lead or something, and then got blown out. Avellini had to start. It was just one of those games. McMahon gets hurt that year because of the kidney, but he just missed that start and was like back the next week or whatever. And we just got annihilated. It was like 39-7 or whatever, and Ditka cut him after the fucking game.
Wow. Chubb says that Mike Ditka's philosophy was keep the good players, get rid of the bad ones. You're naming off a lot of the bad players.
Well, Jim Osborne was there forever.
Yeah, but he was towards the end of his career, so I could see why, he didn't return. But
a lot of these guys retired on their own, like the Terry Schmitz and the Jim Osborne. That's what I was saying. Like, man, you just think if they had to be watching Super Bowl 20 and thinking, why couldn't I just do it for one more year?
Interesting. So Eddie Jackson is one of those players on the Bears defense that really has to step up. The Bears pass rush has to step up. I was actually doing some work for the Bear Truth, the Danny Shimon tape review. I told him on the last show that I wanted to select some tape and have him look at it. So what I did is I looked back at Matt Stafford's last game against the Chicago Bears. And you know what? Matt Stafford has had a lot of success against the Chicago Bears. And one of the things that he has been really good at is stepping up into the pocket and making accurate throws, 15, 20 yards downfield, explosive plays. And the Bears pass rush better get their shit together Sunday night against the Rams, because if not, I got a feeling that Stafford is going to have an outstanding game in front of that national TV. Watching the Bears for decades like I have, one of the sad things, and Dan, you've experienced this in your time following the Bears and everybody else has, is that on national TV games, the Bears just usually don't bring it. They embarrass the city, they embarrass the franchise and so forth. And right now, I'm just tomorrow I can wake up feeling totally different. But right now, I just got this feeling that Stafford is going to come in and just really do it to the Bears. He's got an 11-9 lifetime record against the Bears. He could be 12-9 after Sunday night.
I don't know. I feel like the Bears have usually played him fairly well. There was that period where they won like 7 straight against us during the late Tressman era.
Right.
So that's where he racked up a lot of those wins. The Bears usually play him fairly well, like that game last year where they come back and won at Soldier Field because of the defense just all of a sudden shitting the bed, and Allen Robinson missing the first down that could have won the game. Like, so that's another sloppy win that he kind of didn't deserve. So I don't know. I like Stafford. As you recall, I would have been happy that the Bears got him. I think he's somewhat underrated, but I still think that the Bears, the familiarity and playing him, knowing him all these years, could help us.
Yeah.
I mean, they know how to play against him, and even the Mike Pettin and our new defensive coordinator Desai, like they know him. So I think that helps us a lot, as opposed to someone you're just trying to figure out. Because how many times have we played the Colin Kaepernicks or Brock Osweiler in their first start, and we don't know what to do, and they get their biggest game ever is against us,
Right. 4,000 Clover says Stafford isn't that good, Aldo. It's not that. There's a reason he's called Stat Padford. It will be fact that we won't be able to move the ball on offense. So he's saying it's the offense that's going to lose the game. It's not going to be Stafford that's going to win the game for the Rams. It's going to be our poor offense that's going to probably cost us this game. So I don't know. I like Matt Stafford. I think he's a good quarterback. I think that the Detroit franchise is just awful. They've never given him a running game. He has never had a running game over there. He's rarely had a good offensive line. It seemed like when they started to repair the offensive line is when they got rid of him. So he played for, a franchise. If you think the Bears franchise is bad, he played for a franchise that was just astronomically worse than the Bears franchise. He just didn't have the weapons. And so I'm a little bit concerned as to what he's going to do with a good coach, Sean McVay, an innovative coach. So we'll see. That's going to be one of the compelling storylines of the 2021 season, is to see if Matt Stafford is going to prove that he really can be a good quarterback, because he's got everything he needs around him. There's been some debate in the chat room regarding the offensive line, whether it's good or whether it's bad. We'll get more information on that tomorrow on the Buffon 55 show, where we have one of the writers for a website that covers the Rams. He will give us the lowdown on the Rams offensive line. He's been looking at them for the past 6 seasons, and he's got all the latest information on that, so he can speak expertly about that. But I'm just worried about Stafford. I really, really am.
I'm more worried about if Stafford's going to, I guess it goes along with what you're saying, like him putting up big stats. I still am petrified of our corners, and I know everyone loves Vildor, but I was not impressed with him in the late stages of 2020. And frankly, I'm terrified of seeing him start. Mm-hmm. And I'm not exactly confident in Duke Shelley either. Like, I'm not saying these guys can't become something, but they still scare me, and obviously the offensive line as well. Mm-hmm. So, but corner and the line, those are the two things that we knew going into camp needed solved, and it doesn't feel like they were solved at all. Mm. Did we even try to claim anybody? All we did was bring back Burns, right?
That's it. That is it. And I'm glad we did, because to me, in what I watched out of preseason action, he was, I think, one of the better cornerbacks we have. So it's
but he's not going to start, right? It's going to be Vildor.
Yeah, it's going to be Vildor, and it will either be Duke Shelley or Marquis Christian starting at the slot, based on what Ryan Pace said. But then again, I don't know. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Artie Burns goes out there with the starters Sunday night. We'll see. 4,000 Clover says that Andy Dalton has only made it to 1 Pro Bowl, and that's even with all the years he had Megatron in there. So let that sink in. Dalton has been to more Pro Bowls than Stafford. LOL. You think that you think Andy Dalton is equal or better than the Matthew Stafford, Dan?
No, because inevitably I always shift the topic to Cutler. Mm-hmm. And as someone that was a big fan of Jay as an example, and can point to a lot of positives from Cutler, like Stafford's statistics are better than Jay's were with the Bears. So, and I loved Cutler, as I've said, but just as a comparison. So no, I think Stafford was a much better quarterback throughout his career than Andy Dalton. I mean, let's not forget, Stafford was the number 1 pick in the draft as well. Mm-hmm. And so it's not like, he just came out of nowhere. He was expected to be good. And I think he has been good. And here goes a better question for you. Do you think Cutler had a better career than Dalton? Or do you think Dalton is better? Because, you can say, well, Jay only won 1 playoff game. Well, Dalton hasn't won any. Yeah. And Jay was in the NFC Championship game.
Right. I think definitely Jay Cutler had more talent than Andy Dalton, but Andy Dalton was a better game manager, tended to do fewer mistakes than Cutler. I mean, if I were to look up his stats, I bet you he's had a lot fewer interceptions than Jay. You know, I've always sort of liked Andy Dalton. Not that he's Aaron Rodgers, but I think he's a tier 2 quarterback that is a guy you can win with. The question is, you know, at his age and what he's gone through the last couple of seasons, can he play good football? Now, remember, last season, he ended up the season playing really well. Now, some of the opponents that he played against, Dalton, when he's with the Cowboys, some of them were some really bad teams when he went, I think, 3-1 in his last 4 games. But you also have to look at the fact that he had an atrocious offensive line with the Cowboys. That line, they have a lot of good players, but they were injury depleted. So it's so difficult sometimes to evaluate football players because there's so many other aspects to the evaluation process. Is, you know, their teammates, the opposition, the coaching staff, the scheme, you name it. It makes it really tough. But my eyeballs say that Andy Dalton is an average quarterback, just like Mitchell Trubisky was an average quarterback. If you had a choice between Trubisky and Andy Dalton, and I'll ask people in the chat room this question too, who would you choose? Would you choose Andy Dalton to start over Mitchell Trubisky, or Mitchell to start over Andy?
Now you're talking about the 2021 version of both?
Correct.
So leading into Sunday night, if let's say you asked me in June, we're either going to go with Dalton or Trubisky, take Fields out of it.
Right.
It's Mitch or it's Dalton. I love Trubisky. I wanted him to succeed, but I think in the end we probably saw enough. So I probably would have gone with Dalton, as much as I hate to say that.
All right. Well, here's what some of the people in the chat room are saying. Chubb says Mitch. Steven says Dalton lost to the Jets last year, and the Jets were trying to lose for Lawrence. Michael Diaz says Dalton. 4,000 Clovers says Trubisky. Bruce Ali Walter Jordan says Trubisky for sure. Michael Diaz says Dalton can at least read a defense. Jeremy asked the question, who's the coach? That's a good question.
Yeah, I think that's a point that should be acknowledged too, is that I do feel confident that they won't be able to fool Dalton Sunday and to intimidate Dalton. I'm not going to say he's not going to get injured or something, right, and I'm certainly not rooting for that, but I don't think the Rams are going to be able to confuse him and bewilder him and make him look foolish. Now, he may throw some picks or something, but I think he's at least studious enough and mature enough to where he is a professional quarterback.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. One of the questions that I hope John asks the blogger that covers the Rams is, what has Raheem Morris said about the defense? Is he going to change a lot of what Brandon Staley, the last year's defensive coordinator, the former Chicago Bears linebackers coach, who is now head coach at San Diego, is he going to change a lot of what Staley did? Because that was a really high-performing defense last year. And so if he is, then that could be difficult for Dalton to ascertain. But Dalton has seen pretty much everything. So it's going to be an interesting battle of wits between coaches and Andy Dalton. I think one of the reasons he's going to be starting is because he has seen everything. And one of the reasons Justin Fields is not starting is because he still has to learn how to call adjustments at the line of scrimmage. Everyone points to the big tackle in Buffalo where the defensive lineman for Buffalo knocked his helmet off, almost knocked his head off. And that was a mistake that Justin did. First of all, in not calling the proper protection, and secondly, in not looking over there, and at the very least seeing out of his peripheral vision that this guy was on his ass. He probably could have eluded him had he, had that experience behind him. But who knows? I don't know.
Let's just hope that somehow the Bears don't become the team that I think Vegas had them at like 7. A little less than 7. I don't know how you figure in like 6.5 or something, but they had them basically at like 7 and 10, something like that. I mean, that sucks too. But I mean, like I said, the alternative is the Athletic report that had us as the 3rd worst team in the conference. Like, Like, that doesn't seem like, really? Could that possibly be like true?
I don't. Well, I think I didn't read that article in the Athletic, but they are playing a really tough schedule. They're playing all these NFC West teams, and that's could I think I'll say that's the best division in football. The NFC.
Well, you don't know. That's the thing, though, going into a season, and you know this. I'm not telling you something's right. You just don't know how things will play out.
Yes.
San Francisco could, for example, turn over to their kid that they put all their stock into and drafted, and maybe he has growing pains. Maybe Russell Wilson in Seattle kind of has a tumultuous thing, like, I want to trade it, and maybe he and the coaches start to argue or dissension because they're sort of at the end of their run together. So maybe they're not as solid as they were. And then you just never know what the Rams, like, what if Stafford would get hurt or something? Like, you make a big move and who the fuck the backup is, nobody knows. And you just, whenever you play somebody, you don't know. And then the Cardinals, again, you don't, like, Murray looks like a good player, but they kind of shit the bed at the end of last year that helped the Bears make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I'm just saying, you never know what it's going to be. On paper, it looks so daunting. Yes. But when you get that game, it could be completely like, oh, they're on it like the Bears were last year on a 6-game losing streak. Anything could happen.
Right.
The season has to unfold.
Mm-hmm.
So you could get them cold. You could get them hurt. Anything could happen.
Right. I agree with you. Strength of schedule is sometimes overplayed too much because each season has its own story. And
right.
So, the team from 2020 could have been totally revamped. It could have a new quarterback.
Think about the NFC South for almost a decade.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, seriously, almost 10 years. Like, every year, the team that finished last the year before was coming back and winning the division.
Mm-hmm.
The next year. It happened over and over and over in the NFC South.
Right. Michael Diaz has a great question. He asks, will Justin Fields succeed despite Nagy or in spite of Nagy? So what do you think? Do you think that Nagy is going to help this guy succeed, or do you think that Justin Fields is going to succeed regardless of what Nagy is going to do or not do? That's a great question.
That is a good question. And I still, as long as Nagy's there, he's got to be my guy, even though it's hard for me to put my arms around him. So at this point, I'm going to hope that it's Nagy this is going to make him like even better, accentuate his talents.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but I hope that's the answer. I hope that Nagy makes him better. I hope Nagy proves himself of like, oh, well, see, this is why we didn't fire him. I hope we have that moment this year where we're like, oh, we're all happy that he's still here. When I say that, it's like, you can't see me, but I'm trying to say that with a straight face.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to.
Well, I think that I've seen enough of Justin Fields to know that he's going to succeed whoever coaches him. And he's playing the good soldier right now. He's totally bought into what Matt Nagy wants. He's going to learn from the sidelines. He's totally bought into all that stuff, and that's good. You don't want a rookie to come in and say, fuck this coach. Although that's something Jim McMahon would have done, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I
Cutler
just
too.
Cutler too. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Cutler would have demanded a trade. You're not going to start me? You're going to start that red rifle guy over me? Trade me. I ain't showing up to camp.
I didn't hear which podcast it was. I don't know if it was his or somewhere else's, but he said recently that he was like, from what I read on Twitter, he was so fucking relieved when Fox came in. He was like, he enjoyed playing for Fox. Fox was a real coach. And as much as he liked Trestman personally, it was a complete and utter shit show.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, he was so relieved when Fox got there.
That is wild. So here's a question that I have for you and everyone in the chat. I was thinking about this today on my way to get a massage, which was outstanding. 90 minutes of deep tissue massage from the beautiful Jennifer.
Deshaun Watson wouldn't think it was that good unless it was the deep anal massage.
Yeah, none of that for me. Thank you. Although there were a couple times where she was massaging my buttocks, and I was thinking she better not stick her finger in my ass.
If you do, you're going to ejaculate.
That's right. Real quick. So do you expect to see Justin Fields play Sunday night in some packages? And if so, what would you like to see him do? Like, would you like to see him in a goal line package? One of the reasons I thought of that was, remember when they had the scrimmage this preseason with the Dolphins, and there was reports that Fields was just lighting them up. Was it the Dolphins that had the
Yes.
yeah,
yes.
okay. He lit them up for 4 red zone touchdowns, 3 passes and 1 that he ran in. So wouldn't it be cool if in the first or second quarter, the Bears march down into the red zone and all of a sudden here comes Justin Fields with a red zone package? I think that would be great.
What we don't want to see is, remember last season, I think it was against New Orleans, that he brought Trubisky in despite the fact that Foles was starting, and like ran Mitch for like a minus yard or a yard, and he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to see some shit like that. But
Yeah.
What you're saying is eerily reminiscent of Cade McNown, and a lot of people forget in '99, Cade did okay coming in sparingly and getting drives here or there, plays here or there. Going into 2000, it looked like, okay, well, maybe he's going to become something here. There was at least hope before, then when 2000 ended, it was just like he's gone. So, but
Chubbs is against the idea. He says he's a franchise quarterback. You don't treat him as a gadget player.
I kind of concur. That's where I was going with it, with the Mitch getting hurt. Yeah, I mean, maybe if it's a play where the blitz is coming and it's like to win the game. I don't know if you want to put him in with the game on the line, but I'm just saying, like, if you need some mobility, like, let's go win this game right now. Maybe something like that where he could elude people and get out the pocket. I don't know. I don't know I don't think any of us know the answer.
I find it strange that people bring up, well, Trubisky got hurt on a play like that. So you want him to start and play 60, 80 snaps a game, but you don't want him to go in for 1 snap? I mean, the odds of him getting hurt if he starts a game are 80% more than if he goes in for 1 play. So that whole thing is bullshit to me. He's a weapon. He's a weapon just like David Montgomery is a weapon, like Allen Robinson is a weapon. Jimmy Graham and Cole Kmet are weapons. Darnell Mooney is a weapon. If you can,
Mooney has the thing going with Ramsey, by the way.
Yeah,
Ramsey said he was.
That's another topic that I wanted to bring up because it's people have been talking about it in the chat room. But I just feel like if this guy can help you score points, if he went in for 3 plays and here's another example. All right, the ball is at midfield, 4 wide receivers, 1 running back, a blocking type running back. Send in Justin Fields, and everyone just goes vertical. Deep pass, the running back stays in to block. If the offensive line does a good job of holding, that running back then shoots to the right, and Justin Fields, if he doesn't see a wide open guy, he darts to the left, and he's going to pick you up 20 yards. It's an explosive play. He'll slide or get out of bounds. Why the fuck wouldn't you want to do that? I don't understand fans saying no.
I can see both sides of it. At the end of the day, let's just keep our guys healthy and win, and then I'll support anything. Just get a win and nobody get hurt. You don't need a catastrophic injury like, Montgomery or A-Rob or Fields or, Mac. Somebody's out for the season. You don't want to see that shit. Like, let's stay healthy and let's move on and let's get a win. And if they could get a win, an upset victory on Sunday night, and then, suddenly Cincinnati's not that great. I mean, you can't take them for granted, but if you could start 2-0, now granted last year they started out well and still had a 6-game losing streak, but if you can just get some momentum instead of having to catch up, being 3-4, 3-5, and hoping to go on a streak, just to start ahead it could mean all the difference in the world when it comes to wild card positioning or even trying to win a division title. So.
Absolutely. I you got to take one game at a time, right? And I just feel that the only way we can steal this win in Los Angeles is by utilizing all the weapons on our team. And I think Justin Fields is an enormous weapon. And so just like you want to try to get the ball to Allen Robinson 10 times in a game, and you want David Montgomery to get 15 to 20 touches, and you want Darnell Mooney to take Jalen Ramsey deep a few times, all these weapons that you have, to overlook what Justin Fields could potentially do because you're concerned that he might get hurt. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. But let's talk about Mooney versus Ramsey. It was a big topic of discussion during the offseason. Somebody on social media, I guess it all started because somebody posted, how Mooney burned Ramsey on that one pass play last season, but unfortunately the pass by Nick Foles overthrew a wide open Darnell Mooney, and then there was some back and forth with Ramsey not happy that was posted, and so Ramsey is got Mooney on his sight lines, for lack of a better way of putting it. Do you think that's going to play an issue in this upcoming game, Dan?
I think so, because again, some Bear fans were really going after him when the schedule came out.
That's right.
We talked about this months ago. I guess it came out in May, the schedule this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was already I was like, I'll show you motherfuckers come week 1. Then yeah, he was making these prolific statements about how like Darnell Mooney basically is a bum. He didn't come out and say that, but like he would prove to everybody that like he'll shut this motherfucker down. So it seems like that is something that's motivating him, and those individual things like that usually doesn't play well for the Bears. So maybe we're going to have to see Allen Robinson or maybe one of our other fast wide receivers making some plays.
Yeah. One of the things about Ramsey is that he can get psyched out in my mind. He's like Odell Beckham. Defensive backs will play mind games with Beckham and get him out of his game. I'm thinking that maybe that could be an issue, that Ramsey is going to want to prove so much that he is superior to Mooney that he might take chances to try to get interceptions. And one of the really fascinating things about this preseason was when Mooney said that he's been working on his moves during the off season, that he's been adding a little spice, a little sauce to his moves, adding a fake, changing speeds and so forth. And so hopefully the Bears have plotted something where they can get Ramsey and Mooney one-on-one, and Mooney's got an opportunity to just fake the shit out of Ramsey.
Yeah, or do a pump fake.
Yeah, a pump.
So he'll jump it, think he's going to jump the route, and then let the speed go.
Yes, exactly.
The thing I don't want to see is Mooney running these like 4 and 5 3-yard shallow crosses that they kept doing when Mitch was in there. Maybe that was because they had no confidence in Trubisky, but he's not. I mean, he's a frail kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was, to use an old reference again, it was Dennis McKinnon that was going across the middle, not Willie Gault.
Mm-hmm.
And he's our Willie Gault. So let's keep him healthy. He got the shit beaten out of him at the end of last season and missed the playoff game. That's why your Javon Wims is in there dropping that pass. That could have been Mooney catching it, but we got him hurt by these incessant short crossing routes. Let's play vertical fucking football.
Yeah, I love it.
Granted, we can't be the 70s Chargers here with Dan Fouts in early 80s and just throwing deep every play because we don't have the line for it. But let's still be smart when it comes to Mooney and his body type.
Yeah, totally agree. Chubbs reminds us that Ramsey didn't even refer to Mooney by his name. He just called him wide receiver number 2, as in number 2 in the depth chart. So I love this intrigue. I mean, this could really add. If the crew on who telecasts Sunday Night Football, NBC,
Collinsworth and Al Michaels.
Oh my God, I love Al Michaels, by the way. Collinsworth, not so much. Are you an Al Michaels fan?
I've grown more appreciation for Al. I liked him in the 80s when he was doing baseball on ABC.
Yeah,
and I thought the Monday night group with he and Gifford and Dan Deerdorf was always really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of got on my nerves after that for a while. But to be in his like mid 70s, like Al can still go.
He is sharp as a tack. Yep.
Yeah, it's timeless. Like he's aged so well.
Right.
And in comparison, I would I never thought he was as good as say Pat Summerall or Dick Enberg.
Mm-hmm.
But in comparison with Jim Nance or Joe Buck, I would much rather hear Al.
Yeah, I totally. And I don't think Joe Buck is that bad. He is annoying. There's no doubt about it.
That fucking guy loves Aaron Rodgers, and I'm not saying that because I'm a bitter Bears fan. Just I remember watching a Redskins when they were still the Redskins in a playoff game against Green Bay 4 or 5 years ago, and they were basically sucking Rodgers' dick in the booth and openly rooting against Washington. It was sickening. That's the kind of thing you can tell who Buck loves, and that bothers me. Buck is better at baseball.
Yeah, Buck is good, but Buck is in the business of trying to sell superstars. I mean, yes, he's being paid by a television network, but he knows the value of creating these mythical figures and so forth. And Aaron Rodgers is one of the guys that he seems fit to create this mythic figure of. So I don't blame him that much, although a lot of people in the chat room do. Like Michael Diaz says, "Fuck Buck." Just saying that. Thanks, Mike North.
Who do you all like better, Buck or Nance? I really don't like Nance at all.
Yeah, see, I hate to sound like I hate to sound this way, but a lot of these kind of guys who grew up, rich and I believe entitled, they can be annoying as broadcasters. And Nance just sounds like a country club annoying guy.
Mitt Romney's nephew.
Yeah, that's right. He sounds
I
like
used to joke and say that Braggs was Romney's nephew because he got to go to so many games. But yeah,
Chubb says the only one he kind of likes is Tony Romo. Fuck everybody else.
Yeah, I don't mind Romo either. A lot of people was it Mike North that hates Romo?
I don't think so.
I thought it was somebody in the bar room that was like bitching about because he did our playoff game last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we're complaining about the playoff. I thought that was Mike North, but maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe I don't remember.
I don't mind Romo. I like his enthusiasm, and he certainly has the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And Buck and Aikman seems so smug to me. Like he always looks like he just smelled someone fucking farting. He's so appalled. Like you talk about a guy that like seems like he's in a country club somewhere. That's Troy Aikman.
That's funny. Somebody had a question here for you. The Factor asks, what do you guys think about the female who narrates NFL games? Ask Dan, Aldo. What female is narrating NFL games?
Maybe he means the lady that CBS has do some of the play-by-play. What's her name? Beth something?
Oh, that's right.
I think she did one of the, how ESPN will open the season with the Monday night doubleheader?
Yeah, right.
I think they let her do one of the double headers one year. And now she's like at the bottom of the totem pole, like game 7 or whatever with CBS. Occasionally she gets like 3 or 4 games. Maybe that's who he's talking about. She's fine.
Beth Mowins.
Yeah. So, she's fine. She doesn't come across as someone who wants you to know that she's a woman and doesn't make it about herself. And she doesn't lack credibility. So she's fine. I don't love her, but like if she were a male, I wouldn't, I don't think she's exceptional, but I don't think she's any worse than the guys. That's for sure.
Yeah. I frankly don't remember. I know I remember her broadcasting, but I don't remember whether I thought she was good or bad. Probably my opinion is the same as Dan's, that she's, not great and not good, not bad, kind of
considering
average.
What she's doing, that's perfect, honestly.
Absolutely. I'm all for more female representation in NFL games, NFL scouting, NFL coaching. We just had on Stephanie Rivera, the wife of Ron Rivera. She's on the upcoming episode of Pass the Mic with Peggy Kaczynski. And one of the things that Stephanie Rivera has been doing, she was a coach for a WNBA team, but she's also worked with the NFL to try to get them to have more female representation in front offices and coaching and so forth. And I think that's effing fantastic. And one of the questions once we were done recording, I asked her, do you think that women intrinsically have some abilities to evaluate talent that perhaps men don't do? Like my thought on it was women have kind of a maternal sense, and they can kind of get an idea of what a guy is thinking, what a guy is like, and so forth. And perhaps that could be of great value in a scouting department when they're talking about all these prospects and going through, and they do these interviews to learn about their character, because it's not just what these guys do on the field, it's also what they do off the field and what they're thinking and so forth. So I think that's pretty cool, but I digress. That's a whole different topic for a whole nother show, which will
this
be out
just
tomorrow.
popped in my head, a random reference that maybe you'll remember.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, there was a show on HBO called First and 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that.
Where Delta Burke played the owner of a fictitious football team's owner, because her husband, the owner, was fucking the tight end, and she like blackmailed the team out of him. Like Marcus Allen was on there, O.J. Simpson. Like that show was really fun back then. That could be completely horrible now.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, that show was really fun to me, but you had a female owner. But you remember the Rams had that female owner, Georgia Frontier, for a long time as well before she passed.
That is correct. Laz says that he wants more Joe Namath with Susie Colbert. I want to kiss you.
That was so like Namath was like shamed forever because of that.
Oh yeah, I mean that was.
I mean, but we loved him as Broadway Joe. We talked him up for a culture for 20 plus years about how he was a bachelor and the ladies liked him, and he was in New York and he got pussy and blah, blah, blah. So now we hate him for being the same guy, albeit older, in New York or New Jersey because of the Jet Stadium, but for trying to get pussy. Like that's who he is.
Yeah, but that's you can go out and try to get pussy, but not when you're being interviewed on national TV or interviewed anywhere. It's unprofessional.
I agree, and he was drinking, but you have to know that when you go up to a guy, hey, Joe, you're enjoying yourself tonight, you're drinking, let's put you live on air. I mean, they share a little bit of that responsibility if they know he's already intoxicated.
Yeah, perhaps you're absolutely right.
You could do a pre-tape with it too.
Yes, that is true. So the woman, what you're saying is the woman has the obligation of.
No, I'm not blaming her as the woman.
Okay, so who are you blaming?
The interview, whether it be me or you or Susie Colbert, like to know that can we put this guy on? He's a little bit tipsy.
So you think Susie or the field producer should have said to the show producer, the game producer, I don't know if Joe should go on. He's a little bit tipsy.
Yeah, I think so. But again, like you said, he shouldn't have said what he said. So
let me ask you this question. If it was a male reporter, let's say if it was Ahmad Rashad or whoever, solid as a guy. Yeah. So should he have said, hey, I don't know if we should put Joe on. He's a little tipsy.
Yeah, because if Joe gets on saying some shit like Ahmad, there's some good-looking pussy in the stadium. What do you think? Look at this lady's ass in row 30. I mean, yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's not because she's a lady. Some of it, you have to just use your head and know that this guy is drunk.
That is hilarious. Hey, I don't know if we could put Joe on because he's tipsy, and I keep seeing him stare at the women on row 3. The
Hey,
woman with
Joe,
big tits.
Joe is still like in his older age. He can use the Viagra.
That's right. Well,
He can still throw it.
I have the TV on during the daytime when I'm at work here in the man cave, and every once in a while I see Joe coming up with these like Medicare commercials. It's like,
sad.
what the fuck, man? Oh my god!
You know what I used to enjoy was in the early days of Classic Sports Network before ESPN bought it.
Mhm.
And it was just Classic Sports Network. They would always show like this old series that Joe Namath did as a talk show host with Dick Schaap.
Mhm.
When he hosted it, like I guess they filmed it after the Super Bowl win.
Mhm.
But like, he had like Ali on, he had like some real guests on,
Yeah.
and I always thought that was a fun show.
Yeah. People are agreeing with you that they need to screen the interviews better. Michael Diaz also adds the rule is easy: stay away from drunks and assholes. Never interview a drunk asshole.
Exactly. I don't know that Joe, but they made
Don't
like Joe
interview
go
me.
to rehab after that, and like it's just come on, man. It's a little bit of an overreaction. He fucked up, but it doesn't mean he's a drunk.
Yeah. Well, well, Joe did get help afterwards.
That is what I'm saying. He had to go, but he was like publicly shamed into rehab.
Right. Okay. I get what you're saying. All right. Let's see. We are an hour and 10 minutes in. I want to continue to talk a little bit more about this upcoming game, and then we'll switch over to some of our favorite and not so favorite opening games for the Chicago Bears. What's it going to take for this Bears team to beat the LA Rams in Los Angeles? So, what are your thoughts?
Well, the easy answer that jumps out, and this is low-hanging fruit, would be turnovers. If you can get any kind of consistency back to what we were doing in 2018, I think that would behoove everybody, and that's something that everyone is cognizant of. But to be more specific, like to dive in, just some consistency on offense. Even if you're not necessarily scoring points, don't go 3 and out. I'm not saying that they're going to have 10 play, 12-minute drives, because that's not his style of offense, as he's told us over and over and over. But at least let your guys, it's week 1, and most of them didn't play for real in the preseason anyway, which I'm always against. If I were coaching, I would be trying to establish my program from the jump and the playbook and everything, and fuck it. So you're going to see it going into week 1. You're going to see it going into week 2, what the plays are. So what difference does it make? You're not fooling anybody. I would be trying to establish a rhythm right from the jump in the preseason, but they don't do that. So the point is, most people in week 1 are less likely to have their wind. And week 1, you usually have some upsets because no one's in their fluidity yet, and no one's in football shape yet. So the Bears need to keep their defense off the field as much as they can, so they have their wind, maybe get some turnovers, but that means being able to consistently move the ball, whether that's with Montgomery, the short passing game, or the deep passing game. So the offense really needs to help the defense if they're going to pull off the upset.
Bruce Ollie Walter Jordan says, score more than fucking 17 points. Fucking Nagy. I love the attitude. Here's what I think is you got to control the line of scrimmage. You got to fucking dominate the line of scrimmage. And I think that the Bears offense or defensive line can potentially do that against this Rams. Like I have to learn a little bit more about where the Rams offensive line is, and we'll do that tomorrow night on Buffon 55. But I really do believe that on paper, the Bears defensive line could potentially be one of the best in the league, particularly if we get something out of Robert Quinn. So that's going to be huge. Dominate the line of scrimmage. Now, the offensive line is definitely not going to dominate the Rams, but potentially they could minimize the impact of players like Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd. if they come up with a game plan like the Bears did in the 2018 season on that Monday night game against the Rams, was it a Monday night game or a Sunday night game? I was there.
I think
remember.
It was Sunday.
Okay.
You were there. You were there.
I was there, but I don't even fucking remember. It was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But so they got to figure out a way to, max protect, do whatever is necessary to keep the pocket clean. And Andy Dalton might at some point, at some points in the game, be looking downfield, and there could potentially just be two receivers running routes because they've got to keep the pocket clean, give the guy some time to throw, and he better be fucking accurate if he's going to be throwing into double coverage and stuff like that. He's got to make those big time throws. So again, it gets back to the line of scrimmage. On offensive line, minimize that ferocious Rams attack, and on defense, the Bears defense, really get after fucking Stafford. Don't let him step up in the pocket. Don't let him. One of the things that I when I look back at that Lions-Bears game from December of last year, the Lions
the meltdown game.
Yeah, 34-30 at Soldier Field. They scored 21 points in the second half versus the Bears 7 points, and they pull out 34.
And how many of those points were in the last 3 minutes of the game?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me see if I can find that real quick here.
Holy fuck, that's one of the worst losses in the history of the franchise.
Man, you ain't kidding. Yeah,
and they still overcome that loss and made the playoffs. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, right. With 2:15 left, the Lions had a 7-play, 96-yard drive to make
There's your vaunted Bears defense.
to make it 27-30. And then the Bears get the ball and they fucking fumble. And the Lions then have a 2-play, 7-yard drive. They score in 11 seconds to take the lead, 34-30. The Bears then go out on downs, and that's basically the end of the game. Yes, exactly. So
he had the first down and he ran out of bounds before he got it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Which is the only bad thing he's ever really done as a Bear, honestly.
Well, there's been a couple of catches that he should have had in the end zone or near the end zone, those jump balls, and the ball could have been thrown a little better, but that is his forte, is going up and getting the ball. So I would say there's been more than one fuck up, but that one was clearly the biggest fuck up of his Bears career. There's no doubt about it.
Probably his entire career. Probably I didn't watch much of him in Jacksonville, but that's probably the biggest mistake he's made going back to like Pop Warner,
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then the other thing that you mentioned is the turnovers. Everyone is talking about turnovers in the chat room. You've got to get Stafford to turn the ball over. You got to get the Rams running backs to fumble the ball. You got to just create fucking turnovers. And so
you got to watch their misdirection. Every time we play them the last 2 or 3 years when we've gone out there, it's just like they run these little trick like pitches and like wide receiver fucking screens and and toss sweeps, and we're in like end arounds, and like we absolutely look like we've never seen this before. Like the Bears are completely poor, pitiful Giants, unable to what do we do? We've never seen this play. It baffles the mind when we can sit and watch on TV and know that some shit like that's coming, and they completely look lost. Like they can't do that, man. They have to be aggressive, and it feels like every time they play the Rams offense has their rhythm, and we're just trying to catch up.
Good point. Nick has a great question. Do you see Fields playing in the second half if Dalton has a first half meltdown?
If that happens, we're not going to win. I mean,
why?
Don't get me wrong. Maybe Fields comes back and brings us some dramatic things, but more often than not, if he gets in the game and it's not because of injury, in my opinion, they're going to bring him in when we're down 20 plus. It's going to be a fucking blowout if he's in. So I hope we don't see him.
What about,
and I don't want Dalton to get hurt. So I don't want to see Fields. I want Dalton to win the game outright.
What about,
I think it's better for the Bears if Fields doesn't play in this context, because if they put him in, like I said, we're going to be down 25.
What about what Nick Foles did in Atlanta last season, game 3? he replaced Mitchell Trubisky early in the third quarter. He came back and helped us win.
Agree, but Nagy wanted him in there. Like, that was his boy. They traded a 4th-round pick to get him.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, he turned on him quickly. I think Foles is, who's that guy?
Well, the thing about Foles is he would have played better if he had an offensive line, but clearly that poor offensive line play showed that he's an awful quarterback if he doesn't have a clean pocket. I mean, he is really
he's
bad.
Got a big dick, apparently.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, they call him Big Dick Nick. I'm not kidding. That's his nickname.
Where'd you hear that? I haven't heard.
Oh, yeah. I asked the chat room. I'm not making that up. His name behind the scenes has been Big Dick Nick since the Eagles. He supposedly has a glorious cock.
I don't want to even think about it. I don't want to even think about Nick Foles having a big cock.
Big Dick Nick's his nickname. Hey, Big Dick Nick beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Like, checkmate. He has nothing else left to prove.
Maybe that's what it means. It's not that he literally has a big cock. It's that because he beat Brady and has beaten Brady, and I think every time they've gone up against one another, maybe he's been given that nickname, but maybe he's got a tiny cock.
Yeah, but you wouldn't call a guy Big Dick Nick if he was behind the scenes was Little Dick Nick. Like, you can't call a guy Big Dick unless he actually has a giant cock.
I don't know. I mean, I've been called Big Dick
Richard
before.
and Richard Jr. Maybe if Richard Nixon had a son, they'd have called him Big Dick, but I don't know.
Laz wants me to Google it. Now, I ain't gonna fucking Google Big Dick Nick Foles. No, I'm not.
I'll do it on my private browser.
Yeah, do it on your private browser.
Yeah, because I don't want Verizon to think.
That's hilarious. Yeah, PJ says Big Dick Nick. Big Dick
Nick. Here
Nick.
it is from phillyvoice.com. How did Big Dick Nick Foles get his provocative nickname? Philadelphia sport fans really like to put a name on things. This past year, the Eagles have given the Philly special, the double doink, the big balls Doug, and hungry dogs run faster phrases. They also have, we're trying to get to the point. If you're reading this, where does this nickname come from?
Yeah. They buried the lead, right? It's like they have a headline about Big Dick Nick, and they don't give us the reason why until the 14th paragraph. Oh man, everything is fucking clickbait.
Here it is. Did you see it?
No.
Former defensive end Connor Barwin was cited back in 2014 during Foles' first run of duty with the Eagles. For whatever reason, Barwin chose to answer a posed question from a fan about whose dick was the biggest in the locker room. And he said, "Doesn't the internet know it's Nick Foles?"
Well, Connor, we'll take your word for it.
They had shirts in Philly, too, called the One-Eyed Monster and Big Dick Nick.
That's funny. All right, let's talk about something else. Matt Nagy, is he going to fuck up this game? Do you think that Matt Nagy can repair his image with Chicago Bears fans now that he has two quarterbacks, Andy Dalton and Justin Fields, who could potentially execute his schemes better? Do you think that the mistakes that Matt Nagy has made in the past that we've all criticized him for, his poor play calling, that he doesn't set up opponents, that it seems like he's just calling plays out of the blue, of his stupid attitude about the game, do you think that he can start to repair that image in 2021 starting week one?
I think the narrative is against him now. Like I said, that there's this prevailing thought that he's on the hot seat, which as Bear fans, we don't believe, because they've, as we know, have never fired anyone inside the season. But if that's the narrative that is being disseminated by the national media, it's always hard to get around the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, who were we playing last year when the coach, the guy, Dan Quinn,
Yeah.
You just knew everyone was saying, well, he's going to get fired. He's going to get fired. And suddenly they're 0-3. So Nagy's at that point where he's swimming a little bit upstream. Like he really is. And it's not just the Bear fans that are on him now. Like I think a lot of people are starting to think that his 2018 shit was just a mirage or an aberration. So this is his chance to prove that he's a coach, because I think if it goes badly, and he is fired after this season, he's probably not going to get another job. Unless he's a coordinator.
Yeah. He won't get a head coaching job for a while if he ever gets one. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
So this is probably his last stand without some success. Like he has to show that he really is this bald genius or whatever, which makes me nauseous thinking about it. But so he's got an opportunity. It's kind of like Trubisky last year. You're like, all right, Mitch, this is your chance to come out and get a contract. If you're Nagy, well, you've already ran the other quarterback out. It's on you now, bro.
There are
because Fields isn't going anywhere.
No fucking
way.
Like
Nagy's going to be fired before Fields is.
There is not one person in the chat room, and I'm talking about at least a couple of dozen comments here. No one is supporting Matt Nagy. I mean, his reputation.
Who is the big Nagy supporter? Is there one person
that I can think of?
Anywhere, a personality in the media? Do we know anybody that's like his, other than Andy Reid?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can't think of anyone. Does anybody in the chat room know? It's probably all of the other NFL coaches who want to beat the shit out of him.
I just want to know if there's like the one, like I bet Chris Sims would like him,
Yes. Chubbs makes a good a comment that 2018 was the result of Vic Fangio and not Matt Nagy. But you know what? That was a fun year. You had the what was that? Touchdown pass, the tight end to the quarterback that was called the Christmas play or the snowball play or some shit.
Santa's sleigh.
Thank you. Yeah, there was a lot of creativity going on then. There was, it was a fun time. We all loved Club Dub. Matt Nagy was a bit of an ass, but we all liked him and so forth.
I hope they're not doing Club Dub this year.
Well, you know what? When we had Josh Woods, who is no longer on the team,
he's on the practice squad again.
Oh, really? Did he make it to the practice squad?
He made it to the practice squad, so Carmen DeFalco needs to take a note because he may play again this year.
Well, Josh told us, you guys shouldn't have to worry about Club Dub. It's not for you. This is for us. We had a win, no matter how ugly it might have been, and we like to celebrate. We don't have any cameras in there. This is not for the fans. This is for the players. And I agree with that. He's basically saying, fuck you guys. This is not everything that we do is for you. Now, there have been some situations where
John Gruden mocked us when they beat our ass in London.
Yes, exactly. And some of the players have posted video and images from Club Dub, so that's helped ruin it. And Matt Nagy talked about it a lot afterwards, so that kind of ruined that argument that it is theirs and we shouldn't be worried about it. Well, then you shouldn't be talking about it. But I don't have a problem with Club Dub. Celebrate your successes. If you go out there and win 3-0 after the game, celebrate it. Have a good time. But know that on Monday morning when you're back at Halissaw, you're going to fucking look at that tape and your ass is going to be reamed for all of the, why you didn't score more than 3 points.
Could you imagine just for a moment, like let's say Ditka is coach, they had the random bad year here or there in like 89, they're 6-10. After being 12-4 in 88.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine a member of the 89 Bears randomly trying to celebrate their 5th victory of the year? I mean, it's one thing if you're, the 12-4 88 Bears or even the 11-5 1990 Bears. But if you're on a team that's got 5 or 6 wins and celebrating, like, dude, fucking chill down. You have to me, you almost have to earn the right to do those gregarious celebrations.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. PJ says celebrating mediocrity is the problem. The factor wants to correct you on something. He says, Dan, Chris Sims said Matt Nagy's offense has not shown anything creative. Sims said Nagy does not play to his player strengths. He used the Bills and Trubisky as a comparison.
Okay. I was just speaking offhandedly, facetiously, but I'll be gladly corrected on that then.
Yeah.
At least I can say one thing about Chris Sims I agree with him on.
That's about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
I've watched that show on the mornings. I'll watch like an hour of Get Up with Greenberg, and they're always talking about the same stories. They're always talking about the quarterback battle, even though it's over in Chicago. They still are talking about Justin Fields should be the starter. They're always talking about Dak Prescott. They're always talking about this Aaron Rodgers. It's the same storylines.
It is. It's like a fucking soap opera.
Yeah, it really is. And so I'll turn it over to listen to Florio and
Where's
Sims
Greg Gabriel when we need him?
Really?
I who hates who more? Does Greg Gabriel hate Mike Florio more, or me? Do I hate Chris Sims more? That's the question.
That's good. Have to have you and Greg on to
No, I don't want to be on with Greg. Greg just Greg intimidates me. I don't know what. Like Greg would tell me to go fuck myself. He hates me and I should kill myself.
He tries to behave when he's on the show. So he wouldn't tell you to go fuck yourself, but he would send you a DM saying go fuck yourself.
Exactly. I don't need that kind of pressure. So
Stephen Me says the Taliban, they're big fans of Matt Nagy.
Wow.
You heard it here.
That's fun. That's a good, if Shane were here, that'd be like the tweet of the night or whatever.
Yes, exactly. That is, hey, we should resurrect that, right? The chat room.
That's his gimmick. I can't think.
Okay. All right. We are an hour and a half in. Want to talk about openers?
Yes. I've got one that I mentioned. Remember last year we did the 25 like regular season victories?
Yes.
Yeah, because that was when, as we didn't know it at the time, everything that was going on behind the scenes transitioning from 100 Proof to their show was sort of up in the air. No one knew how it was going to play out. So I didn't even know it at the time what was happening. I just knew you said, hey, let's do the show. And, so I gleefully put a lot of effort into that. And I've mentioned this game on that. But if people didn't see that or remember that, then maybe this will be fresh to them. But otherwise, I apologize if you're hearing me talk about the same game again. But to me, and I saw this game as a boy, and to see it now, it almost, and it just hurts my feelings so badly because they were so dominant. The 1987 opener, the Bears on Monday Night Football against the reigning, defending Super Bowl champion New York Giants. The Giants had just won Super Bowl 21. The Bears, of course, had won Super Bowl 20, but we lost our quarterback. Now, Jim's not back yet. If you watch this fucking game, even with Mike Tomczak in there, the Bears defense opens up 1987 with the ferocity, and the defense looks like it did in 85. It's suddenly you look like, damn, they're back. They beat the fucking dog shit out of Phil Simms. They sacked him like 8 times. He got knocked out of the game 2 different times. Now, give Phil credit. Like Otis Wilson said in his book that Phil didn't have any balls and they didn't respect him, that he was a pussy and all this. Hey, but Phil got knocked out of the game 2 different times and was bloodied and came back in. But they sacked him 7 or 8 times and sacked the backup once or twice. So, which I think was like Jeff Rutledge or somebody. But the defense looked like, and the final of that game was 34-19. It's on national TV, on ABC, on Monday Night Football. And everyone looked and was like, damn, the Bears are back. The Bears are for real. And there's no way you could look at the defensive effort in week 1 and think to where they were laying down at the end of the season. I know the turning point as we look at it now was with Ditka and the Spare Bears because of the strike that comes up. And, the for 3 games. They've got the replacement players, and he calls them the real Bears, and that ruined team chemistry. I get it. You're pissed at the coach, but they never recaptured the fire on defense that they had early that season. And then week 1, they look like the 85 Bears again. So when you watch that, you're like, how is this team not going to win the Super Bowl again? And Jim McMahon's coming back. And when McMahon was coming back, he was throwing the rock, throwing 300 yards against the Broncos. So it's not like he was coming back and like, yo, he doesn't have it anymore. Like the first game back, his first game back after the Charles Martin thing a year later was against Tampa Bay. The Bears are down because, again, the defense is just suddenly going through the motions. We've seen that before. That they just suddenly got fat, metaphorically. And Tampa was beating us by late 20. And back then, Tampa was terrible. So the Bucs are up by like 20. And they bench Tom Zach at the half and bring McMahon in. And, of course, he leads us back, throws a game-winning touchdown to Neil Anderson. But what I'm saying is if you watch this game, it's almost saddening to say that the potential this team had to win another Super Bowl and then to not win, to not get back. Oh my God. Because after this season, it's over.
Yep.
But 88, they're 12-4. Ditka's coach of the year, but it's with a completely different roster. I mean, it's with Jim Morrissey and Ron Rivera at linebacker, not Otis Wilson and Wilbur Marshall. You know, it's without Willie Gault. It's without Walter. It's, you know, you get the point.
Sure.
The team is going to be broken up after this season. When you watch that game, they are so dominant. It will make you melancholy for just like, how did they blow this? But again, if you just want to watch it and just like see them dominant, and if you haven't seen it, if you're young or if you were just like too young or whatever, like if it's on YouTube, I don't know. I've got the actual recording, but
it is.
Go out of your way to watch the 87 opener against the Giants. You will not be disappointed.
Now, recall for us that was the year of the Scab Bears, for lack of a better way.
Right, that's what I was calling the Spare Bears. That's
the Spare Bears. Okay. So, how many games did the Spare Bears play?
3. And they were 2-1 off the top of my head. They had a big lead in the 3rd game and blew it to those fucks. But no, the Bears still that year were the 2nd seed behind San Francisco, but they were upset at home in a playoff game I love to reference by the Vikings. The Vikings went to Candlestick, and little Anthony Carter, who was good, don't get me wrong, but he was a small wide receiver with the Vikings. He had like 220 yards receiving. Montana was benched in a playoff game in San Francisco when they're the number 1 seed. So when the Bears were playing Washington, because that was the Saturday playoff game, the game that proved to be Walter's final game, that game, if the Bears win, suddenly they host the NFC Championship against the Vikings. There's no way they're losing that game to the Vikings,
right?
A team they play twice a year at home at Soldier Field. All they got to do is beat the fucking Redskins, and they have a 14-0 lead, and the fucking defense gives it up. But early in the season, they were on point and playing the way they did in 85, which again is the most upsetting part. Is they suddenly came back from the strike and was like, oh, well, we don't like Mike for saying he likes the Spare Bears, and so we're not going to play hard anymore. That's bullshit.
Yeah. The part of the problem with that team is they lost 2 out of 3 games in December, or 2 out of their last 3 games in December.
And Neil Anderson got hurt.
They lost that December 14th game. I got it up in front of me here.
The San Francisco game was an annihilation.
41-0. And then the following week at home against the Seahawks, they lose 34-21. And I remember thinking, holy shit, this great season is just falling apart before our eyes.
To be fair, McMahon's not playing there.
Right. They win the final regular season game against
the Raiders.
The Raiders, and they scored 6 points to win that.
But
game.
that's with Tom Zach.
Yes,
McMahon's back for Washington.
But you're still going into the playoffs with this really bad mojo, you know. And so But I hear you. That was the opener against the Giants gave me hope. I was thinking,
Oh, that would get your dick hard if you hadn't been hard in 20 years. That's how impressive that they hadn't looked that impressive since Super Bowl 20.
Stephen Me has a interesting trivia thing here. Redskins have won Super Bowls every time there was an NFL strike. Did you know that?
Yeah, they won in 82 and in 87. That's true. But they won in 91 without a strike. But yeah, in 82 was the 9-game season, and they had the expanded playoff route. Joe Theismann won the Super Bowl that year, 17 over Miami. And they had to come back and score 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to win that. And then in 87, they do it with Doug Williams. So, and it's interesting that Jay Schrader was starting most of that season. And to Joe Gibbs's credit, he thought that Doug had played well against the Bears when he was a member of the Buccaneers. So that was kind of the deciding factor of starting him against Chicago in the playoff game. But as we know, the Bears are up 14, and what hurts us is that on one of those touchdowns, McMahon throws a touchdown. I think it was to Ron Morris, and he took a huge shot on the injured shoulder. And he doesn't leave the game. He stays in there, but the rest of the game, his arm is a little bit off. And the reason he had missed those last couple of games going into the playoffs, they were resting. He had a really bad pulled hamstring. So the difference in the 85 McMahon versus 87, 85 McMahon's running all over the place. If you remember against the Rams in the championship game, the first touchdown is a McMahon out of the pocket 30-yard scramble for a score. And that's the cover of Sports Illustrated with him spiking the ball or going into the end zone. So he's immobile in 87, and they hurt his shoulder. But even that, what ends up beating us is fucking Darrell Green returns a punt for a touchdown.
Yes, I remember that.
2 plays, the turning points in the game is Darrell Green has a punt return for a touchdown, and McMahon and Willie are off just a bit. Like Willie goes toward the left, McMahon throws it to the right, and he's picked off in the end zone late. And maybe it's in the early fourth quarter, but that was the backbreaker between that and the punt return. And we still only lose 21-17, but you have a 14-0 lead. It's quote unquote bear weather. It's like 20 below zero. And they let Doug Williams just come straight back down the field 2 different times in the fourth quarter or in the second quarter and tie it 14-0. I mean, come on, man. You got a 14-0 lead. You got to protect that.
You got to protect that. You have all the mystique. You're the Bears. You're at home. You still have your team. This is the team from 85. Yep. I mean, and it's cold, and it's everything that you beat your dicks about. That was such a missed opportunity. It really was. Really good. It's got a great recall there, Dan. I want to go back to 1968, September 15th.
This is definitely before my time, so I want to shut up and listen.
Well, I don't have the recall that you did, but it was the Bears at Washington, named, of course, the Redskins back then. And this is the first opening week game that I remember watching. And I was so excited because, again, like I said earlier in the show, I was doing all this research on the Bears. And, at the time, I'm like 9 or 10 years old. And so I'm learning about the National Football League and reading books about great players. And one of the books had as a great quarterback, Sonny Jurgensen, guy that played quarterback for the Washington team. And here it is, 1968, watching this game. And Sonny Jurgensen throws 4 touchdowns against the Chicago Bears, and they beat us 38-28. I got some video from that game that I found on YouTube. It's part of the NFL Films collection of stuff. But it was typical Chicago Bears. There's a 99-yard touchdown pass from Sonny Jurgensen. It's funny because the goalposts are on the goal line, so he's got to maneuver the ball to make sure it doesn't hit the goalpost. And the guy catches it.
Can I interrupt just 1 second?
Sure.
1 second. That's funny you say that because Washington, a few years later, they're victimized by that goalpost being like that in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
When with George Allen, Billy Kilmer throws a pass with the guy wide open, and the goalpost knocks it down. So the last Super Bowl that they had the goalpost up was 8.
Mm-hmm.
So starting in 74 is when they put it back as we know it now. But please go ahead.
So, but this team is still what gave me my affinity for the Chicago Bears. And on this touchdown, this 99-yard touchdown pass, which I speeded up the last several seconds of it, Dick Butkus is the lone defender against the wide receiver who caught the touchdown pass, and he just couldn't catch up to him. But there was Gale Sayers on this pass, on this game. He's catching a pass as I'm watching this. It's a lateral, actually, just being Gale Sayers, just breaking tackles, just spinning away from tacklers, just running over tacklers, and just being so sensational that I had to fall in love with this team. Here is a run where he runs 60 yards. He steps out of bounds at around just outside the 10. So he didn't score the touchdown, but he did have, if I recall correctly, and I actually have the stats here. Let me make sure I give out the right information. He did score, let's see, how many touchdowns did he have? Actually, Gale didn't score a touchdown in that game, so I'm confusing it with another game. But yeah, 15 carries for 105 yards. The long was 42 yards. We just saw that on screen. He caught 4 passes for 39 yards, and it was just one of those. It was a seed. It was like, okay, I got to continue to watch this. I love this game and I love this team. They were wearing the black, or not black, but the navy blue and jerseys for that game. But later I would see them in the all whites, and that did it, man. I'm really in love. But they're wearing those virgin white uniforms with the white C on the helmet. Just loved it. And so that opening day game in 1968 was what started the love affair that I have with the Chicago Bears. What do you got,
That's
amigo?
awesome to hear.
Man, I love looking back at this stuff. Let me give you another one. 1970, the home opener was on a Saturday night. I mean, I was reading all these books about football on any given Sunday, every Sunday, anything can happen, blah, blah, blah. And then here it is, 1970, the Bears are opening up the NFL regular season on a Saturday night on national television. And it was against the New York Giants. And the Bears actually won this game, which was great. And they won it in part because Cecil Turner, number 21, took a kickoff. I think it was 96 yards, took it in for the touchdown. And Dick Butkus had a tremendous game against quarterback Fran Tarkenton. He intercepted a Tarkenton pass. I had forgotten that Tarkenton finished his career with the New York Giants after playing so many years.
No, that's not true, actually. Not to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No.
But Fran got traded because the Vikings were coached by Norm Van Brocklin at the time, and he and Norm didn't get along, so they traded him to the Giants.
Oh.
And then when Bud Grant came on, the Vikings gave up like 2 first-round picks to bring him back.
Mm-hmm.
And he did lead them to 3 Super Bowls after that, but man, he played shitty in all the games. But anyway,
that's the timeline for Francis Asbury Darkenton. But again, that was just such a memorable game. And I remember at the time thinking, I'm at home on Saturday night. I wasn't even aware that the NFL regular season was starting on a Saturday night. And I just happened to catch the start of the game as I'm channel surfing, and it was like so cool. Wow, it's a Saturday night start to the season. And I wonder why the NFL hasn't done that more often. And I've learned that since around that time, they have ceded Saturdays to college football and only play on Saturdays when there aren't any college football games on. Not quite sure why that happened in 1970. Because clearly, the college football was still going on, and that was the only time that I recall there being a Saturday night NFL game, but it was definitely very cool. What do you got, brother?
Who do you think would have broadcasted the game back then?
Oh, well, that was definitely CBS. Back then, it was strictly NFL was carried by CBS, and then when the merger happened, NBC carried all of the old AFL, AFC games. So now, over the last 4 or 5 years, Fox has, of course, the NFC games, but they also cover some AFC games because the contract has been changed to allow CBS, which covers the AFC games, to have some of the big market NFC games.
The way it was before, up until, in my entire lifetime, when there was an interconference game, like let's say an AFC team at the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say like this year, Cincinnati at Chicago. The road team's network carried the game. So if the AFC team is the Bengals, they're on CBS predominantly, they would carry that game. But conversely, if it was the Bears in Cincinnati, the road team is on Fox, that's the Bears, the Fox would get it.
Right.
Yeah, but with the last TV deal, they were doing things to where you could sort of trade games between the two networks.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I've seen the new deal that's supposed to start, I guess in 23 or whatever it is, the new TV deal, the almost none of that matters anymore. Starting with the new deals, the conference thing is completely obliterated with it.
Okay, that's going to be interesting. I don't want to say, I don't know if it's good or bad.
Right. Yeah, I know it's interesting, but real quick too, you were talking about the white on white, which we've always just gushed over.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of games for sure that the Bears are going to have to wear the Navy on the road.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the Rams are going to wear their quote unquote throwbacks, the Rams uniforms that they won a Super Bowl with like say Kurt Warner.
Right.
Sunday night. So the Bears are going to have to wear Navy Sunday night. And I saw Tampa release their uniform scheduled. They're wearing white in Tampa when the Bears go down there. So they're going to have to wear either blue or orange when they go to Tampa. And there's a chance that the Browns may do that too.
Wow.
I still have been waiting the Bears because I want to wear the same jersey, on the games that I go to. So I don't want to wear the wrong one to Cleveland.
Yeah.
So I wish they would release their jersey schedule. They haven't done that yet, though.
I'm surprised they haven't. They usually do that by now.
Yep.
By the way, before you talk about the next opener, again, if you're just joining us here live, we're talking about opening games for the Chicago Bears during their history that Dan and I have witnessed or just want to share with you our thoughts. The Factor has a question that I think I'm going to know what your response is. He says, who wowed you guys more, Dan Marino or Patrick Mahomes?
I would say John Elway. I know that's not one of the ones you said, but I've said this many times, and ironically, Phil was the one who agreed with me. Draft Dr. Phil, I thought the best quarterback that I ever saw was John Elway. And that's not to say the quarterbacks that I didn't get to see per se, like, the Johnny Unitas's, I saw him hold on tape.
Mm-hmm.
But in my lifetime, in my run of quarterbacks, because I've seen Elway pretty much from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
Do I remember the 83 season? No, but I've seen a lot of it since. But I definitely remember like him coming into his prime until his retirement. And he's definitely my most respected and most my favorite non-Bears player that I ever saw play.
Mr. Mack just joined us, and he
could
says,
run, could throw.
Who? I
said he could run, he could throw. He was awesome. Led 3 teams to a Super Bowl when he was basically all that they had.
Yeah.
Well,
he was just
2 more when he had a team around him.
Yeah. He was a sensational athlete. He was this dual sport athlete, incredible arm and so forth. I wasn't as enamored with Elway as you were, but I did respect him. Now, PJ is saying Dan Marino had a quick release that was unstoppable. I like Mahomes more because he is more electric, and I totally agree with what PJ is saying. Now, Dan is on record as not being a Mahomes fan. In fact, you hate Patrick Mahomes, right?
No, I root against him now because of like the NFL just sucks his dick constantly. But that's not to say that I don't think he's any good. I've said, though, like you saw what happened in Tampa in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no
if
offensive line.
If you get some pressure on this guy, he is going to be Brett Favre in the sense that Brett would just throw the ball up for grabs and get throw 20 to 30 interceptions a year.
There's some truth there. There's no doubt about it.
I think when he's with lesser teams, he is going to lead the league in interceptions.
He can become reckless. There's no doubt about it. That was one of the knocks on him in college. And we saw him, but I don't think, I think he's going to get better in that respect where he's not going to be as reckless. I thought that there was a sense of desperation in that Super Bowl game that he felt like he had to do something because he saw that the game was quickly, the Chiefs were losing it. And so he had to create something. And so because of that, the offensive line was totally in disarray because of injuries. He was just trying to create something. And so,
well, we don't say that when Cutler was trying to do it. We say he sucked. So I love to see that happen to somebody else.
Yeah.
I wish it would happen to Rodgers.
Yeah. I don't know. We can't compare Mahomes and Cutler. I mean,
I'm just saying,
Mahomes
if Jay was trying to make something happen because he had a bad left tackle and was getting sacked 10 times and a half, which happened against the Giants. But if he's just slinging the rock and getting picked off, we're all just going to say, he sucks.
I get
but when Mahomes does it, we're like, it's because his line.
I get what you're saying.
But we coddled him.
One of the biggest things about the Jay Cutler career in Chicago is he never had the supporting cast. I mean, Patrick Mahomes would not have been an MVP player if he didn't have an excellent offensive line in 2020. And in 2021, when that excellent offensive line started to dissipate because of injuries, then he couldn't pull off the heroics.
I enjoy. And I hate Tom Brady. I don't want to see Tom Brady win any more Super Bowls.
I'm not a big fan of Tom Brady either, but my respect to him, what he did last season was like, all right, I got to fucking pay him some respect finally.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I looked at it. I was like, well, at least he beat Green Bay for me. So go ahead and get another Super Bowl. It also gives a fuck you to Belichick. So go ahead and win it. Fuck it.
Yeah, that was good. That was really good. You know what's interesting about Brady, and then I want to get back to this topic about openers. Well, it's now that he's at Tampa Bay, he is really speaking his mind much more honestly. I wonder if Belichick kind of intimidated him into being quiet about some of his thoughts, or is it because he feels like, fuck you all, I'm at my age and with my winning record, I can say whatever the fuck I want. For instance, just the other day, he was talking about how NFL quarterbacks, and he took kind of an indirect shot at Justin Fields. He says, I was watching the Bears play, and he's making all these mistakes but he's being protected by the offensive line. He didn't mention Justin Fields by name. He was just referring to that play where Justin Fields got his helmet knocked off. He was saying, now NFL referees are protecting quarterbacks from that. You get quarterbacks throwing to receivers who are double covered and putting them in danger. Back when I came into this league, I couldn't get away with that. The referees were not protecting us. And so I think this is bad for the game. So he was basically saying, I'm a much better fucking quarterback than anybody out there because I played at a tougher time where the referees wouldn't protect me, where I had to be careful not to throw the ball into danger for my wide receivers, et cetera, et cetera. I thought, this motherfucker is getting ballsier and ballsier. He's fucking throwing the Super Bowl trophy and while he's on a boat fucking drunk and so forth. He's not the Tom Brady of the Patriots. He's a much edgier Tom Brady. Do you have any thoughts on that? I will say
this, like everything you said was true. However, it was a bullshit call that made Brady. I mean, even Brady said if you go back and watch the NFL films footage of the fumble against the Raiders, he was quote unquote pissed off on the sidelines because he lost the game and he knew it. And then they gave the ball back. They make up this fucking rule and give the ball back because Walt Coleman from Mississippi says it's a tuck rule and we're going to give the ball back to the Patriots. That's the way he sounded, I swear to God, if you don't remember Walt Coleman. And they give the ball back. And of course, the rest of the story. Because think about this. if they lose that game, which they should have, Gruden was fucked in that with the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
But if they lose that game going into 2002, Brady's not even the starter. Drew Bledsoe would have been starting again.
Mm.
So Brady's whole livelihood was given to him by the officials. So don't fucking whine to me about the officials today help the quarterbacks. Your whole goddamn career was given to you by a bullshit, oh, we're in New England, we like Robert Kraft, let's give him a fucking blowjob kind of a call here. Which nobody watching other than a Patriots fan, even if I was a Patriots fan, I could say, oh, that's bullshit. We got away with one. They won't say that, but they fucking got away with one. And they cheated the entire run that he was there. Videotaping other teams, that's well documented. The football scandal, the fucking, the letting the air out so it's easier for him to throw. Like they cheated the whole time he was there. Fuck him. I hope he never wins another one too.
Chubb says he wasn't whining about the officials helping him. He was whining about the officials punishing the defenders for stupid quarterback throws.
Well, okay. I'm just saying the officials have helped him along the way too.
I'm totally with you on this one, Dan. Totally with you. It's not like he hasn't made bad throws for his receivers too. There's a fucking reason Rob Gronkowski walked away from the game, and it was because Brady was throwing passes to him over the middle, and there was just no fucking evading the fact that he was going to get killed by tacklers. So it's not like he's had this pristine career where he never threw the ball into a dangerous spot for his receivers. I thought it was really just cocky on his part and almost self-serving, it felt to me like, because I saw the clip, I wish I would have pulled it. It just felt to me like he was basically saying, I'm a much better fucking quarterback than all these guys. All right, let's get back to the topic at hand. Talk to me about some other openers that have caught your mind.
Opening day 2002, it felt really good. The Bears again are coming off of 13 in 3 years, I referenced earlier, and ultimately are going to go 4-12 in 02. But on opening day, it's from Champaign because Soldier Field's being rebuilt, and they've torn the old one down. And so the whole year you've got to play at the University of Illinois. So opening day is at Champaign on that horrible Astro play turf thing that would hurt so many people.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Minnesota is about to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a big fan before he got hurt of Dante Culpepper. Culpepper had a huge arm and could run and was kind of, Justin Fields, obviously won big games in college, and Culpepper played at Central Florida or somewhere. So I can't compare their two college careers, but on paper, their bodies look very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if he hadn't got hurt, he could have had a great career in Culpepper. But so Culpepper's leading the Vikings down the field. I don't remember the exact score, but they had the lead anyway. And then it's late in the fourth quarter. And what happens? Our guy, Mike Brown, number 30, of course, intercepts Culpepper when they could have, I think even a field goal would have just, softened the game away. But they throw in the ball and Mike Brown gets a pick, and we get one more chance. And the Bears, just like 2001, would drive down the field, and Jim Miller would throw a touchdown to David Terrell to win the game with under 30 seconds to go. And I'm like, see, this team can keep winning.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we just beat the high-powered Vikings, and everyone says 13-3 was a fluke, but fuck them. Look, see, we just did it again.
Mm-hmm.
I was so excited. I bought the white replica Jim Miller jersey that day. So I was very excited. I thought, well, okay, I'm buying into Miller now. Boy, that was a bad purchase. Which is what I told him on Twitter once when he was condescending to me. And I was like, because he takes everything you say to him like you're calling him an idiot. And I was like, sir, it's like, no, hold on. Let me just tell you, I bought your jersey. I'm a fan. I'm just talking to you about what you're saying on your post game.
Yeah. Some of these guys, they get bad, tweets or whatever from somebody else. And then all of a sudden they think anybody that says something is out to get them. They got really fucking thin skin. And
he does. He kept calling me something like young Jedi. And the thing I was saying is, it was the 14 season when the thing happened with the coordinator and Jay. Remember, he was ripping him behind his back and cried to the team, the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Which only in the Bears could some shit like that happen.
Mm-hmm.
But the criticism was that Jim Miller said something like they can't run the right run plays because Cutler doesn't realize this or that or whatever.
Right.
And I was like, well, how can you say that they're only running the ball? I was pointing out that if they've only run the ball like 10 or 11 times a game, because Trestman wanted to pass every down as well, then how can you say that Cutler's affecting the running game when they're not running the ball? Because he was saying that they weren't effectively running because of Jay. I was like, but they're not calling run plays. They're not running the ball. So how can you blame that on Jay? And of course he took that as I was being an asshole. And I was just like, no, literally, look, they've run the ball 11 times in the last 3 games or whatever. That's not enough.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. That's on the coaching. But yeah, he thought I was being an asshole to him. But that was for just one afternoon. It felt like that they were going to be able to sustain the success and the fun season that 2001 was, again at 13-3. And it's eerily reminiscent of 2018. You have the one season and then you can't do anything with it.
Ravi brings up the Jim Miller getting busted for steroids after going back to back on those 400-yard games. Do you remember if he was actually suspended for?
Yeah, he was at the rest of 99.
Right, because I remember.
I think it was 4 games.
Was it that many? Wow. Because I remember his press conference discussing that, and I remember him saying, if anybody's seen my body in the locker room, you would know I don't take steroids. But boy, oh boy, you don't need to take steroids. When you take steroids, it doesn't necessarily mean that you become, Arnold Schwarzenegger. It means you just become stronger, and you may not look like you're stronger, but it does aid you in certain ways. So I never believed Jim Miller then.
I was watching when I was recording those games for Eric Kramer. It was one of the 2 games in 97. It was either the Packers game where we go for 2 and lose, or that Dolphins game where they come back and win. One of the 2, and it was so fun. On the screen, they were showing NFL headlines or stories of the day. And they were all Bears related, even though they weren't at the time, because they're former Bears or future Bears or whatever.
Right.
But when they show on the screen, it was like, quarterback Jim Miller is just signed by Atlanta. And I was like, wow, I don't remember him with the Falcons. This is before the Bears. And the other story was that the Colts had suspended Jim Harbaugh because he had punched Jim Kelly and broken his hand. Harbaugh it was in a pre-tape interview when Jim Kelly was working for the media. And I had forgotten all about this. I looked up the story. I actually sent it to you. And he didn't like the criticism that Jim Kelly was giving him. So he fucking punched him and broke his hand.
Jeez.
So the Colts suspended him for just being a moron. But it was fun just to see that on the screen. I sent this to Kyle Long once and he didn't respond. I was watching a playoff game. I think it was Denver at Kansas City in 97. Of course, watching it live. I did watch that live, but I wouldn't have known who Kyle Long is then. But watching it now, I was like, holy shit, the punt, pass, and kick or whatever the fuck that thing is. They would bring the kids out on the field.
That's it, yeah.
Like Kyle Long was there as one of them. Or I think it was Kyle Long. No, I'm fucking this up. It was a guy that played for the Cincinnati Reds named Todd Frazier.
Oh, okay.
That was on the punt, pass, and kick. The thing I sent to Kyle Long was an old United Way commercial that Howie had Kyle and Chris Long in his arms as babies.
Really?
And I sent that to Kyle Long. Yeah, he didn't respond, though.
Fucker.
Yeah.
Lots of good comments about Jim Miller. And the one that caught my eye is that after the whole steroids thing, Miller never played as well as he did prior to the suspension. I mean, he just became the journeyman quarterback that he was. So, I mean, if there's anything more indicting than that is
well, the comeback in 02 happened after that. So I'll give him that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Just the opening day game was fun.
Yeah. All right. I got an opening day game for you that I actually went to. I attended the opening day game in 1985, the Super Bowl season.
Oh, the Tampa game.
Yeah. I had just started working at WBBM TV, the CBS affiliate here in Chicago. And one of the videotape editors invited me to go with her to watch this game. We got there a little bit late. She had 4 tickets, and so there were 2 other people that came with us, and we went to pick them up. And so by the time we got there, the Bears were already trailing 7-0. The Bucks had scored off a Steve DeBerg pass with about 8 minutes.
Scored 28 in that first half.
That's right, exactly. And but boy, oh boy, it was just so great to see the Bears rack up 38 points. And I think a touchdown came from a Leslie Frazier interception. Yeah, I'm looking at the box score here. Early in the third quarter, 22 seconds in, a 29-yard interception by Leslie Frazier made it a 28-24 game. The Bears had narrowed the lead because, yeah, the Bucks scored 28 points in the first half, scored nothing in the second half. That Bears defense came alive. But that was just such an incredible game. Great seats, near a 40-yard line, about 10, 15 rows up, and just had the time of my life. And who knew? I mean, I shouldn't say who knew, because after the 1984 season, everyone in Chicago, most people in Chicago, I should say, just had a feeling that this was going to be a Super Bowl year. The Bears had been eliminated by the Redskins, I believe.
No, the 49ers.
Excuse me. That's
game.
right. They beat Washington in the first playoff round, and then
with Steve Fuller.
Right. What was the score of that game against?
It was something like 23-19.
The 49er game?
No. That was 23-0.
Right.
I thought you meant the Redskin game.
Yes, it was 23-0, and that was the game where Bill Walsh had one of his defensive
Guy McIntyre.
And after the game, I loved Ditka's reaction to it. He was calm, and he was saying, watch this next season. He has such an air of confidence about him. So when I went to that 1985 home opener, it was with great expectations. It just broke my heart that the Bears defense gave up 28 points in the first half. But after that, the way they won the game, and it just set off.
Was with Jim McMahon slinging the rock.
You got it. You got it. And they could have scored, 30 plus games in most of those games, 30 plus points in most of those games that season, if Mike Ditka wasn't so conservative with his play calling.
Jim was 23 of 34 for 274.
Jeez.
2 touchdowns. He got sacked 3 times.
Jeez. And that was if I remember correctly, that was a pretty decent Tampa team. What did they end up?
Their record sucked, but they had good players.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So that's the one I wanted to just bring up. An opening.
That's a fun game to watch.
Oh.
I mean, to go back and watch the TV, because you got
you sent
Tim
me
Ryan
that game.
and Johnny Morris, man. It's kind of hard to go wrong with that if you're a Bears partial,
Mm-hmm.
a Bears fan. To hear Tim Ryan and Johnny Morris is so good.
Yep. Stephen Nagishi, my buddy, says that inspired Ditka to do the same with William Perry. That's right. After the 49er game, he was inspired to use William Perry as a running back, and William Perry was the first-round draft pick that season for the Bears.
And Buddy didn't like him because he was too fat.
Exactly. Buddy wasn't often wrong, but he was definitely wrong about that. He can't.
And Ditka got a DUI after the game because he was celebrating so much for sticking it to Bill Walsh. And again, the difference,
right.
If you go back, because again, I don't want to keep shitting on Steve Fuller here, because I think he did the best he could, and he won the playoff game against Washington. Mm-hmm. They lose a championship game like 23-0. And the 49ers are saying, like, bring your offense next time. So they do. Week 6 rolls around 85. They've got Jim. First drive of the game, what happens? They go straight down the field and fucking score a touchdown with McMahon. First drive. You got Jim in there. They score, and they're the defending Super Bowl champions. Same defense they had the year before. But we got a quarterback now. Touchdown, 7-0 Bears. Fuck you.
I love it. I love it. Hermes777 says William Perry did have a weight problem. I don't think it was a weight problem. I mean, you look at him now. I mean, he wouldn't be bigger than most of the defensive linemen in football. I mean, he would be almost miniature.
I thought you meant in 2021. I was like, unfortunately, he does have a weight problem today.
Yeah, he's like at 400 plus pounds, right?
Yeah, poor guy. He's having a hard time. So does Wilbur Marshall.
Yeah. Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Wilbur's so beat up that he said he's only given a few interviews over the years. Wilbur said if he could do it all over again, he wouldn't have played.
Oh, I might have seen
that.
that.
He's disabled. He's completely disabled and can barely walk.
Wow.
And he said that his Super Bowl wins with the Bears and the Redskins mean nothing to him in comparison if he could be living a better life. Conversely, Mongo has said, fuck it. I've got ALS. I would do it all over again. If you told me it was going to lead to ALS, I would do it all over again. And the same thing, Jim McMahon said that too.
Yeah, it is interesting. It takes a certain mentality to play this game of football. It's not only, an alpha male, but it takes somebody who is willing to risk their lives and also knowingly know that the latter part of your life is going to really be affected by the fact that you play this game. And even today, with all of the safety precautions that the NFL has taken, these guys are still going to be fucking limping when they're in their 40s. And some of them will probably be like Wilbur Marshall and say, I wish I never would have played the fucking game. It takes a lot out of you, man. I have a lot of respect for these guys.
Wilbur, yeah, me too. Wilbur, apparently, that's why he won't even make 85 Bears appearances and stuff. He's so ashamed that he's heavy because, again, he just is incapable of working out to the way he would have if his body wouldn't fail him, So I think he walks on a cane. And he does not make appearances, and he's completely ashamed of the way he looks, which is unfortunate. And the guy statistically deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. If you compare him to other linebackers that have made it, his stats are way better and gets no love. I mean, it's just, as Mike North and I said, it's just too bad the Bears didn't let this guy go.
Yep. Yeah. Chubbs has something interesting here. He says, I don't feel sorry for them. They get paid millions of dollars. All I get is $50,000 a year for being broke down. And I think what Chubbs is referring to is his time in the military. But I don't know, Chubbs. I know that they make a lot of money, and I'm not saying that, I feel sorry for them. I mean, there's still a human aspect to this. I don't care how much money they made. You still kind of feel bad at the fact that they're just not going to lead lives that are anything more. I don't know how to express it.
Mongo in a wheelchair breaks my heart. Yeah. I cried when I saw that. Yeah,
absolutely, man. I mean, I don't get it. I don't know. It is hard to see these guys, these warriors. Okay, Chubbs, just come on. I know you say they are risking their lives, but when's the last time an NFL player died on the field? Well, maybe
the guy against the Bears.
That's right. Maybe that's why I feel that way, because I saw that game where Chuck Hughes, the wide receiver of the Detroit Lions, died on the football field. And so, and I also remember very distinctly Darryl Stingley being paralyzed. And I also have seen and read of so many stories of players being disabled, and with the CTE thing, the Pittsburgh Steelers center, living in his car. He made millions, but he was living in his car for the last 4 or 5 years because his life was so fucked up because of all the head injuries.
I sent you a story the other day. I don't know if you saw it or paid attention, because it was just wrestling. but her name was Daphne, was her wrestling character. She was in WCW and TNA, and she just allegedly she killed herself at like 46, and she's convinced that she's got CTE from all the steel chairs and shit to the head. She wanted to, kind of like Dave Duerson, she wanted to keep her head intact, and once her head studied, and she had apparently offed herself.
Yep, and that's you bring up another name. Dave Duerson was a guy that I got a chance to work with. In fact, I got the picture right here. I'll hold it up on camera. Geez, getting old. That's me, and to my immediate left is Dave Duerson, and the guy on the far right is Dennis McKinnon. Yeah, the guy with the sunglasses, a friend of mine named Scott Ruiz, who's a Chicago police officer. We did a project for WBBM TV, and that was one of 3 times that I got to work with Dave Duerson. Fuck, I never would have imagined this guy was going to commit suicide. And why he committed suicide was because of the hits to the head. So, yeah, these guys are putting their lives on the line. So when you say how many guys have lost their lives because of playing football, there's been a lot more than you know, probably. A lot more than you know. I'm sorry. You're terribly wrong about that. Chubbs goes on to say, everybody I know down there is disabled. They made it to retirement in the military. You're totally right. Chubbs, first of all, it's not a fair comparison. If I could be king of the world or king of the nation and so forth, people who protect our country would be making a hell of a lot more fucking money than athletes. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. But under capitalism, the people who entertain you make more money than the people who protect your lives. That's the unfucking fortunate truth. So, it's apples and oranges here. And Chubbs, you deserve a lot more than $50,000 for helping to protect our country. You deserve $5 million a year, but that's not what it is. And so, you're defending a country, a capitalist society that makes it that way. So, am I making any sense here?
Yeah. I just, only got 24 more minutes or so left. And
Please go ahead.
I just wanted to bring up, I brought up 2002. So it's worth mentioning the atrocity that was 2003. One of the worst games I've ever seen in my entire life. Opening day, about a 4:30 p.m. East start time. Chicago at San Francisco. That day would see the debut of Cordell Stewart. And he did throw a touchdown to Des Clark, but that was it. And we lost 49-7 at San Francisco, who Jeff Garcia and T.O. and the boys just ripped us to fucking shreds. It was awful.
Good one. What else you got, brother?
What, just bad games?
Yeah.
Oh, man, the Cutler's debut in Green Bay in 2009.
Oh, no.
Mega disappointment with that. I got another good one for you.
Okay, good.
1991 opening day was the emergence of Tom Waddle, who had the touchdown pass from Jim Harbaugh diving into the end zone as we beat Minnesota 10-6 at Soldier Field. That was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
What else we got? How about 88? You mentioned Dan Marino. 88 opening day. It's the first day of our new team, in the sense that Willie's gone to the Raiders, Willie Gault. Walter is retired.
Mm-hmm.
So Neil Anderson is now going from fullback to running back, the tailback. We've got new wide receivers. We're going with Ron Morris, whom we've drafted, and Dennis McKinnon, and Wendell Davis, whom we drafted. So we've got a new offensive set where McMahon is going to be more, active throwing the ball. And then, like I said, you've lost Otis Wilson, you've lost Wilbur Marshall, Leslie Frazier's long gone because of an injury. So the secondary, the linebackers, it's a whole new team, and that quickly. But it's opening day, the first day in Chicago with the grass, which I always wondered, did Walter like playing on the funky ass turf? Is that why they kept it so long? Because as soon as he retired, they put the grass down. I don't know.
That's an interesting question. Maybe maybe we can get Walter's son on the show. He's promised to come on the Barroom Network. Maybe we can get him on and talk to him about that.
I remember Jared making me cry as a fucking kid when he put his dad in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Jesus. But yeah, opening day 88 was Miami at Chicago. We mentioned Marino, and all you heard about that whole day was all that the Bears had lost. All the old Bears are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And remember the last time we played Dan Marino, he lit those Bears up anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So the Bears, man, they're in trouble this year, and it went the other way. Jim McMahon lit Miami up, and they blew out the Dolphins on opening day in Chicago. Which was a fun one. I don't remember the exact score, but it was a blowout.
The Bears, I don't know if you knew this, Dan. The Bears have won 55 of their openers against 41 losses with 5 ties. Now, prior to last season's opening week win to the Lions, the Bears have lost 6 straight openers. That's not good.
Yeah, back when Ditka was coach, we seemingly won every year.
Yeah, I know. Those Ditka years were really good years for helping our record in so many ways, like helping us against the Packers.
Oh, yeah, he owned Green Bay.
Oh, my gosh, yes. Here's another stat. The most points the Bears have ever scored on opening week was way before your time and mine. 1942, they posted 44 points against the Packers, and the most points they allowed was 52. The 49ers piled it on in a 52-24 loss in 1965. Man.
Hey, I went back real quick. The Bears game in 88. Marino that day was 9 of 22 for 113 yards.
Wow.
Chicago 34, Miami 7.
Wow.
Opening day 88. Yeah.
Do you have that one on video?
Yes, I do.
You didn't send me that one, Dan.
I'm working on getting.
I'm just kidding.
No, but I'm working on getting that one from 77 that you mentioned. You haven't brought that up on air yet, have you?
No, I haven't.
Well, let's hear about that. Tell us about that.
All right. Hold on a second. Let me get my notes here. But talk about one more, and I'll bring up my notes on that 1977 game.
All right. Opening day. How about 95? Since we have so much recent talk of Eric Kramer.
Okay.
The Minnesota game opening day in 95. I mentioned this to Eric. It seemed like we didn't really utilize Curtis Conway the first 2 years, and Minnesota's kind of like growling at us because we beat them in the playoffs. And they thought it was sort of a fluke. They had beaten us both times in the regular season, and we go up to Minnesota and beat them in the wild card.
Mm-hmm.
So the next year they're talking about how they're gonna get their revenge. Warren Moon had been going through a lot of shit at the house, like divorce and all this. He's like, I just can't wait to get back on the field. We're gonna get revenge against this Bears team, and so the game rolls around into everyone's shock, I guess. Kramer is throwing deep over and over and over to Conway, and they can't stop them. And the Bears fairly easily take care of Minnesota on opening day. Off the top of my head, I'm guessing it was like 34-14-ish, something like that. And it just seemed like, wow, we got like Conway's not a bust. This motherfucker can go. But you kind of didn't see it before that. It's like Wani said, okay, the training wheels are coming off.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Curtis Conway, if you're watching, you promised you'd come on Barroom Network. Dan Aguirre really wants to talk to you.
I love Conway, and like I've said so many times, I love Graham too. I'd like to talk to Jeff Graham.
Oh man, he'd be great. He'd be great.
Jeff, why did you leave us?
All right,
are you that big a whore for money, Jeff Graham? No, I'm just kidding. I wonder if the Bears tried to keep him. I would like to ask him, like, not ask him about money because it's not my business.
Sure.
But did they lowball him, or did they just say, fuck it, we don't need you? I wonder if was he trying to stay and they just didn't want him, or did the number? I would love to ask him out without asking specifics on his numbers because that's none of my business.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was he insulted by it? Because there's no franchise tag back then.
Right. Yeah, I don't recall the particulars when that whole thing happened, but it struck me as it being typical Bears to let another good player get away. And I thought Graham was always underappreciated. And what they didn't realize is that he helped to unlock Conway's greatness by being on that roster and providing another excellent receiver opposite Conway. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. 30-20 was the opening day score. Bears 30, Detroit Lions 20. I think one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this game is because Don Burr always comes into the chat room and talks shit about the Bears. And
I've got a good Bears Lions one after this then.
Okay. Bears beat the Lions 30-20 to open 1-0. Coach Jack Pardee. Do you remember Jack Pardee?
Jack Pardee would later coach the Oilers and had played with the Redskins, and fuck the Bears. Like they go to the playoffs in 77, and then he just fucking walks away to take the Washington job.
Mm-hmm. He frustrated me so much as the Bears head coach. I was so happy that they finally looked that they had hired a competent coach. And Pardee's first 2 seasons with the Bears, if I recall correctly, were losing seasons. But the 1977 season, again, you correct me if I'm wrong here, because I probably am, but that was Pardee's first winning season with the Bears, and it starts off.
It's Walter's MVP year.
And Walter's MVP year, and that is why this game is so memorable, because Walter had an outstanding day. 23 rushes, 160 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He had, I actually put this up on my Twitter account at Barroom Network, a portion of his 73-yard run, which actually wasn't even a touchdown run. He was stopped just short of the goal line. So tremendous stats. And he did catch 1 pass for 2 yards, but it was that 160 yards rushing that just was so effing memorable. And the NFL Films highlight of that talks about Walter as if one of the lines that Sable, and I'm assuming it was Sable that wrote on the NFL Films highlights of that game, was that Walter Payton would probably end up in the Hall of Fame, just like his predecessors, Gale Sayers and Bronco Nagurski did. And it was so prophetic. And he just, that was a point in time where me as a Bears fan, I realized, I'm watching greatness here. I'm watching greatness. And it was I got that same feeling when Michael Jordan came to the Chicago Bears. It's like, I devour Chicago sports, but these guys, Walter and then later Jordan, these guys are on another planet. These guys are tremendous. And what Walter did to Detroit that game was just phenomenal.
I asked Mike North this, I think it was via Twitter, not in conversation, but I asked him, in their prime, who do you got? You got number 40 or you got number 34? And Mike North said Sayers.
Yeah. And I can see that because of the speed, the breakaway speed. It's so phenomenal. But, it almost depends on the situation. Like, who else do you have on the rest of the team? Because one guy could help a team. If you've got a poor offensive line, then I want Walter Payton because he's going to break a lot of tackles. If you've got a great offensive line, then I want Gale Sayers because in the open field, he's going to do such tremendous things. By the way, PJ tells me, don't forget about Willie Gallimore. And you're absolutely right, PJ. Gallimore was special. I never got to see him play, but I read a lot of stuff about, Willie Gallimore, a life that ended way too soon, but he's a special player. That's a great question. Sayers or Payton? Man, and both were so great to see run with the ball. They had the distinctive style. Payton was a power back, bouncing off tacklers, breaking tacklers, and Sayers was just so elusive. Bill Cosby, who unfortunately doesn't have a great reputation nowadays, but in one of his comedy albums, he actually said, I saw Gale Sayers play, and I saw him against the Rams actually split himself into two. Half of him went to the right, and the other half went to the left. And of course, that's not true, but that's
it's funny as fuck.
It's funny as fuck, but also is a great like analogy, metaphor, whatever the word is, for how he ran, because he was just so shifty. It's just unbelievable, man.
And Walter's just so soft-spoken, but is such an alpha male.
Yeah.
Like, Walter would fuck somebody up. Like Walter, he's bored trying to ride motorcycles and shit after he retires. If Walter is like retired at like 40 today, I bet he fights in the fucking octagon.
Mm-hmm.
Like Herschel Walker did that for a while. Now he's just radical. But anyway,
real quickly, a lot of people are taking Walter Payton over Gale Sayers. And Chubb says, let's not get ridiculous. Walter Payton did a lot more than Gale Sayers, but you're missing what he did on special teams. And when he scored 6 touchdowns, I think 2 of them were on special teams. He would run back punts and so forth. He also was really good at throwing the football like Walter did. And if his career wasn't cut down because of the knee injury that he suffered, he may have been the rushing leader, or I don't think he would have been the rushing leader, but he might have led the NFL in all-purpose yards.
After Jim Brown, he was definitely the symbol of the NFL for running back.
Yeah, he was.
Being Gale Sayers. So to be the generational back, and the Bears would have 2 of them within a 20-year span is phenomenal. I mean, it's just like, how did that happen? But I wanted to reference quickly because we just signed one of these guys' sons recently. The 1992 Detroit Lions at Chicago Bears. Brett Perriman would catch a touchdown that day. Again, we have Rashad. Is that how you say it?
Yes.
His son is a Chicago Bear now.
That's right.
His dad was really good, and so was Herman Moore. But Detroit takes the lead really late in the game. Rodney Peete threw a touchdown to like Willie Green, I think. And then as it would come down, it's like 20, I don't know, like 27, 23. No. Because the Bears are going to finish with 27. So let's say it's 24 to 20. Detroit's winning. It's like, a minute to go or whatever. And the Bears drive down the field, but it comes down. This is opening day 92. It's 4th and goal from like the 4 or 5 yard line. And it's like 2 seconds on the clock. This is it. It's 4th down and there's no time left. And Waddle had like 3 drops that day, which he never had.
Never.
And just had the worst game of his life. And then here it is on 4th down. And Harbaugh throws a slant in the end zone to Waddle, whom catches it when it matters. Touchdown, Bears win with no time left on the clock.
Beautiful.
Opening day against Detroit. So if our Lions fan is there.
Lots of chatter in the chat room about this whole Payton versus Sayers debate. Man, oh man. And some people are really down on Sayers. I know they don't mean it that way, but the love for Payton is so strong that they're taking shots at Gale Sayers. Like Chubbs is, come on, Chubbs. I'm taking Ryan Nall over Gale Sayers and Walter Payton.
Oh, that's crazy, man. I got it completely. He's fucking with us.
He's fucking with us. You got any more openers for us? Because I know you got to dash out of here in 5 minutes.
Yeah, let me think real quick. Something else that would have been meaningful, or let me come up with another one. What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at Michael Diaz says, Chubbs, are you sure you're not Mike North? You rabble rouser. And Chubbs responds, LMAO. He's giving us shit. Chubbs, I love you, man. One of these days we got to get Chubbs on the show.
We blew out Seattle on opening day once.
Disregard that.
No. I don't mean to disregard it. Hey, if you want to bring him on. It's cool with me. 1990, the Bears beat Seattle on opening day. It was kind of a boring game, but the Bears shut them out. 17-0, 20-0, something like that at Soldier Field. And considering they had been 6-10 the year before, to come back, it was like a statement to say, okay, the Bears are back. And they were. They had a good 1990, but much like 87, like you said a little while ago, they lost a couple of games down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seemed to disrupt everything. And ultimately, they would lose to the Giants in the second round with Jeff Hostetler, who had not ever played a game in his life, basically. And still, of course, beat us but they won the Super Bowl, so I can't really shit on Hostetler, who's from here, by the way, in West Virginia. But,
oh, really?
yeah, he played at West Virginia and was fucking the coach's daughter. I think that they're still together, and he was a high school coach here for a while too. And then his son got hit by a car, something really horrific.
Mm-hmm.
Like his son became a special needs kid, like seemingly overnight, and he quit and retired as I think he was coaching, and I think he just quit on the spot to take care of his boy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think his kid got hit by a car, something horrible.
That's not.
But yeah. Hostetler was from here though.
Hey, you got such tremendous recall. Do you remember Lovie Smith's home opener
Against Detroit?
It was against Detroit.
In 04, right? And Edinger, the reason we lost, Edinger had a field goal blocked, and it was taken back for a touchdown by Detroit.
Oh, look at this. Unbelievable. But, one of the things Lovie said in his opening press conferences is he enamored himself to Bears fans by proclaiming, how important it was to beat the Green Bay Packers. So the following week, they go.
The following week, they go to Green Bay and they win, and that's the day I bought Thomas Jones's jersey.
Ah, look at that.
Yeah. And Thomas Jones told me on Twitter he still has this one too. I bought the jersey. I customized it to say T. Jones because that's what his jersey said, because the Bears had a kick returner the first 2 weeks named Daryl Jones. You say, who? Exactly. But they had a guy named Daryl Jones for 2 weeks. So I buy the Thomas Jones jersey literally 20 minutes or so after we've beaten Green Bay because I'm suddenly sold on Thomas Jones. Because before that, I was a little bit salty thinking, well, I like A-Train, but I was like, well, this Thomas Jones guy is pretty good. So I buy his jersey, and the next day they cut Daryl Jones, and Thomas Jones's jersey then just says Jones. And I've customized it to say T. Jones the way his did.
I love it.
But as soon as I buy it, Daryl Jones is cut and he says Jones. But Thomas told me on Twitter that he still has the white T. Jones one hanging in his house of the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one he framed, was the first one he wore that said T. Jones, which is the one I've got.
Chubb says he'd be willing to come on, but the last time he was on a podcast, he got an autographed jersey of Dan Hampton, and so he wants to know what we're offering. So PJ says Peyton was better, but in today's game, he would take Gale Sayers because of his speed. That's an excellent response there, PJ. And Herney 777, I told you that Herney at the end of last week's show, he said that you, Dan, should be working in Chicago radio. And today he asked the question, when are you coming to Chicago radio, Dan?
I'm coming to Chicago in week 4. But
he wants you working here.
I'm in market like 3,059.
That doesn't mean shit.
It does. I mean, I'm not like Mike North did Chicago, like the third media market in the world.
He owned a hot dog stand prior to taking that job. So
I'm just saying it takes a lot to operate in the big fucking time.
Yeah. Well, trust me.
I don't want to like sell myself short, but to quote Clint Eastwood in Magnum Force, the man's got to know his limitations too.
Ernie 777. I saw that last week when you asked that question. So I asked Dan to send me his audition reel. And so I'm going to start shopping it around. I'm going to act as Dan's agent. I'm going to get him a job here at either Score Sports Radio or ESPN because they
lay people off that are really good. You know?
Well, that's why, you'll work for peanuts. That's why they should hire you.
But I've got a more, I can't just up and go.
I know. But hey, if you could get a job for like $75,000 doing Chicago radio, would you pack up?
In a hypothetical scenario, if I had still been married and something like that, and that's what she wanted to do, then I would listen more often. Now, just being by myself, and literally it's me against the world because I don't even have basically don't even have family. So I'd rather just stick with what I know. You know what I mean? Like you gotta have some comfort level.
Yeah, I will say this. Brandy told me she would love to live in Chicago.
Well, that's fine.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Brandy and I aren't married. I mean, of course, I'm not saying that in a hypothetical scenario that I don't like Brandy and it couldn't end up that way, but it's not the way it is now. So
the factor wants to know where I'm taking you when you come to Chicago.
I would definitely want to go to Ditka's restaurant.
Right. That's high on the list. I believe the Oakbrook restaurant is still open, so we'll hit there. I'm taking him to Walter Payton's Hill.
That'd be awesome.
Because I live literally 2 blocks away from Walter Payton's Hill. So he and I will do and Brandy will do the walk up the hill and take some pictures up there, shoot some video of you, have some fun. Going to take you and Brandy to a strip joint. Want to see a couple of the strippers give you a lap. No, I'm just kidding. I would
here
love to
in West Virginia, the strippers show their vaginas. Do they not do that in Chicago? No, some places preclude that
they
from
do
happening.
not.
If you can't show your pussy, I don't want to go.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if you can't just show, I mean, do they not show it in Chicago?
No, they do not. Not that I know of. I don't think there's a strip joint in Chicago that allows bottomless strippers. I gotta tell you a quick story. I know you gotta go.
See, I don't want my strippers to be TVPG. I want my strippers to be rated fucking X. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'll do some research. If I find a rated X place, I'll take you and Brandy and then drop you guys off, because if my wife finds out that I went to, but I was in Miami with a bunch of friends, and we dragged one of the guys who hated going to strip bars for some reason. He hated going to strip bars. Well, I know why. He was an alcoholic. He had stopped drinking, and so he was afraid that if he went to a strip bar, he'd start drinking again. Well, anyway, long story short, they were totally bottomless, and the women would stand on a table that had a mirror on the base. So you look at the mirror and you see their vaginas. It was outstanding. And my friend who hated strip bars, he didn't want to go home. So that's you, Victor Jimenez, my buddy Victor. All right. Give you here the last minute or so, because I know you got a dash. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to share with people?
I was just thinking about other Chicago stuff.
Go.
Always on movies and stuff, always see the fucking trains that go through town.
Oh yeah, I'll take you there.
I wouldn't mind getting on a train just to fucking. That sounds stupid, but I've never gone to the town. So,
well, one of the things that my wife was saying is, what if I get you guys, or you guys really being you and Brandy, a hotel room, so that on Saturday, or because you guys are leaving Monday, right?
Yeah, I got to leave Monday, but I told you we don't want to fuck in your house, though. So,
no, you get here Saturday, right? So I want you to stay.
The goal, yes.
Yeah, so I want you to stay at the house Saturday, and that way, we're a block and a half away from Payton's Hill and blah blah blah. There's all sorts of stuff to do around my house. But my wife's idea is, what if we got a hotel room for them in downtown? So after the Bears game, they can just go over to the hotel, and then, they can then experience Chicago downtown on Monday and Sunday night. And that's kind of an idea that we're kicking around. We're going to make this a really, really incredible trip for you and Brandy.
Not to sound like a fucking bitch here, but I would hope that my trips around town, I would have you as my liaison.
Oh, yes.
My guide. Because I don't know what's what and where to go and where this road leads. And, so I'm your guy. I really like to depend on your knowledge.
I'm your guy. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, because otherwise I'm just going to sit in the fucking room then. Because, I feel overwhelmed by, there's no way I want to, drive in New York or Chicago. Because, I just want to catch, if it's me, then I'm getting on the subway or whatever, because I don't want to get in that traffic.
So I'm going to take you to South.
The worst traffic I've ever driven in was DC, and it was just terrible.
Mm-hmm. How about if I take you the South Loop where all the prostitutes are?
I don't care about that, but
I do.
Anyway, real quick, because I got to go. we'll talk about this later on.
Hey, Brandy's in the chat room. She says we need you, Aldo. Yeah, I want to hang out with you guys. Don't worry, I will. Go ahead. You were going to say.
Don't kick us out, man. You only got us for 2 days, you know. So
okay.
Please don't just throw us out. Like,
I'm
you got to
not
be gone
throwing you
after
out.
the game on Sunday.
We're trying to figure out the high octane Chicago trip for you. So
we'll just ride with you, and like you can show us whatever, and at least that's the way I'd like to do it. And then, you know, just quietly leave Arlington Heights on Monday.
All right, like, we'll do that. I'll take you over to where the racetrack is so we can see the future home of the Chicago Bears Stadium.
So there you go. As I go, I just wanted to bring it back because it's 34 after I gotta go.
You bet.
That's a few weeks away, obviously. But we've got week 1 Sunday, and I hope that somehow we can pull off, because no one seems to think the Bears have a shot. So it'll be an upset. And usually when the critics say this, it always turns out that they're right. So, but I hope that somehow the Bears can win. And I think if they're going to, we need Dalton to have a good game, because I don't think they're going to give him the hook unless it's really out of hand.
Yeah.
So again, I'm hoping that Dalton can, show the world that he was once called the rifle, or the red rifle, but you had to be okay to have your distinction of a rifle to be able to throw a little bit. So let's see some of that. Hopefully the defense can show up, and somehow maybe we get Stafford sacked a few times or force some picks, which is quite possible with him.
Yes, it is.
Because we've seen him, we know him, and maybe we can exploit the fact that he doesn't have the best back in the world now, and somehow pull off this upset. And that's what I hope happens.
Well, you get to work. It's 911 time for you, so the public needs you, and we'll let you go. Well, yeah, I'll just talk to you via text. And I was going to talk movies, but we ran out of time with you, so we'll table that discussion for the future. I don't think we're going to have time to talk movies. It's Bears season. We're going to be talking football for 3 hours.
Yeah, I'll try to come up with a montage of shit that people are saying on Monday.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Post game after week 1, but it's a Sunday night game, so it'll be a little bit harder. But I'll try to come up with a piece like we used to do last season, with like a 14, 15, 10-minute montage compilation of things that the national or Chicago media are saying.
All right, sounds good, brother.
All right, everyone be well. It's been fun.
Safe travels. All right, everybody. Dan Aguirre, he is incomparable. He is such a unique voice in Bears podcasting. Really, really enjoy doing these shows with him. I got before you guys all go away, I know a bunch of you are still here live, and many more will be listening on the on-demand version. I want to urge you to give a new show that we have a chance. It's called The Bear Debate. I moderate a debate with John Buffone and Tyler Ellis, the Gaines Report. You know these guys. They're talking about high octane, very passionate. These guys I come up with a series of questions, and they have 30 seconds each to answer the questions. And then after a break, we have a roundtable discussion. And we recorded the first show earlier tonight, and I am really proud of this first effort. And as the weeks go on, we're going to move it into a live show, but because of some of the production challenges with the time clock and so forth, I wanted to record the first episode or two. So I'm going to edit it tonight, actually, put it all together, and it will be on demand, available for you tomorrow morning. The audio podcast will be available later tonight, but the video version, which I hope that you will watch, will be available tomorrow morning. I want to say around 10 a.m. or so. So please be on the lookout for that. It's our brand new show called The Bear Debate. And if you're a hockey fan, tomorrow at 2:00 live, it's Bar Down with the Parisi brothers. Those guys, they bleed hockey. I think if you were to cut them open, there would be hockey pucks coming out of their blood veins. So check that show out. And we've got Buffone 55 returning tomorrow. This is the 5th season John has been doing the show at the Barroom Network. and the last 3 now with Alyssa Barbieri, who is the managing editor at bearswire.com. She's the co-host of the show, and we've got a special guest. I think I mentioned this early in the show, a gentleman who covers the Rams. He's going to give us the lowdown on that. So we've got all sorts of programming for you tomorrow, and then on Thursday morning, it's the Mike North Advantage, and blah, blah, blah. The programming just goes on. So I'm super excited. This is week 1 of the NFL, and it's going to showcase all of the stuff that we've been working on over the last few weeks to give you Bears coverage unlike any other podcast network. So hopefully you will watch it, listen to it, enjoy it, and share it with your fans, with your friends. So that's it for me. Anything else in the chat room that I should comment on? Ravi says that he watched Predator last night for the millionth time. He had no idea Hopper was the guy in the helicopter. Isn't that wild, Ravi? Sometimes you watch movies dozens and dozens of times, and all of a sudden, wait a minute, I never knew that, or I never saw that, or I never heard that, or stuff like that. It's pretty cool. I saw a movie last night. It's an old movie called Bloody Mama. It's 1977, I think. Shelley Winters plays Ma Barker, the famous criminal from the early 1900s. And it's interesting because when the movie first started, it says it's rated R, and then they list all the things that in the movie. And the very first thing they list is incest. And I'm like, incest? That's interesting. Well, apparently, allegedly, according to this movie, Ma Barker, the famous criminal, she was having sex with her oldest son. She left her husband. She took her 4 kids on a crime spree, and she was having sex with the oldest son. And one of the 4 sons is played by none other than a very young Robert De Niro, Ma Barker. I can't really recommend the movie as it being great, but if you like action movies and incest, then Ma Barker is the movie for you. Chubb says, goddamn, incest porn is everywhere now. It really is. My gosh, Chubbs, you're so right. You go visit a porn site and it's, mommy fucking son. It used to be mom fucking the stepson. Now it's just mom fucking son and dad fucking daughter. It's like, what the fuck? Who approves of this stuff? Who wants to see this stuff? Apparently, a lot of people do, but I don't get it. The Bear Man says, appreciate you, Aldo. Dan, too. Yeah, Dan is the guy, man. He is the star of this show. When Dan and I first came up with the idea for the show, he goes, I want it to be called Aldo and Dan Bear Their Souls. And I go, you fucking kidding me? You're the star, dude. You are the stars. Dan and Aldo Bear Their Souls. We will be back here next Tuesday after what I hope is a Chicago Bears victory on Sunday night. And we will be here every Tuesday night throughout the season. It's going to be sensational. We got a lot of stuff, cool stuff for you. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in live. And for those of you listening on demand, really appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.